With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of Advanced Motorsports is to demonstrate the speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
Just 4 weeks' time, a champion will be crowned, but first we must get through the month of February. And where better to go then? Well, the home of Ferrari. Not the place you're thinking of though. It's time to travel to Mugello, a circuit owned by Ferrari since 1988, where today the undulating hills will pose plenty of challenges for the drivers in the Precision Racing League GT3 double header. Hello everyone, welcome back along. Delighted you can join us here. Our Junior Kanki Party back alongside with Joey Tebben as we get ready to rumble. And Joey, new racetracks, something that we're quite familiar with in the PRL GT3 series. Mugello, I think one that I've been looking forward to. Not sure how many of the drivers have been looking forward to it though.
Well, this opens the door for new possibilities because it is a new track. Everybody's on an even playing field. They're all learning this for the first time, and that could spice things up a little bit. We've had multiple new winners in this series this season, but maybe we get an even newer winner at a newer track. It's going to be new either way.
Of course, we're taking a look at some of the shots of the drivers working around the track. They are working for qualifying right now. Here's a look at the schedule, of course. Last time at Suzuka, in January, we reached the halfway mark and we flipped the page over into a new month. And after this, Road Atlanta, Okayama, and then to Mount Panorama to close off the season. And boy, we've been talking about Bathurst being a championship decider as a storyline, but it's about the setup that you got to get there first. Let's talk about championship standings as they run right now in this Precision Racing League GT3 Fixed Series. It's Isaiah Osborne with the 2 victories, the 4 top 5s, and a 25-point advantage over those behind him. Just 4 rounds left to go. He's well positioned given that drop round starting to be brought into the mix. Osborne's not really had a bad round so far.
Yeah, after round 5, drop weeks did start to be calculated, so these are legitimate championship standings right now. And that's a pretty big lead that he can afford to have a buffer. Jeff Carollo had a very bad week in week 1 at Aragon. Osborne's worst week, that was in week number 2, and if I'm not mistaken, he finished P6. So, yeah, exactly, he hasn't had a very bad week, but he can only afford to have 1 bad week or even 0 bad weeks, because the second he drops one of his weeks, he's got no margin for error in those final 3 rounds, unlike what he has right now with a little bit of safety.
And while Osborne runs by himself in the Drivers' Championship, Carollo and Venkataraju, 2nd and 3rd, are teamed up for Vulture Motorsports, and so when you take a look at the team championship, you'd think, oh, they'd be in a great position, but in the course of a team championship, you can have as many as 3 drivers score points, and so Vulture Motorsports, with the 2 drivers that they have up towards the top, only scored in 3rd behind both the SG eSports team in 2nd and SRT Blue that are out top, and with an 8-point advantage over the chasing pack behind. Still a very close team championship fight with the 4 rounds to go.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how that math works. SRT Blue is Brett Thurman, Jason Finch, and Jared Keane, but Jared Keane has had a few solid races. He did have a DNS in round 3 and a DNF in round 1, so you didn't see him in the top 10 in the driver's standings, but he's done a lot of work to get SRT Blue up to the top of the standings. SGE as well, that's Waldo Walden, Buck Hamilton, and Felix Felice. Similarly inconsistent, but consistently inconsistent in that their high highs have been very, very high, and that gets them the team's championship lead, at least for right now. You can't run a whole championship like that. You need to be a lot more consistent if you want to hold on with a full 9-round season.
Now, it did take me a little bit to realize that that is exactly how the championship standings shook up as well, but yes, math will math, apparently. Drivers, as mentioned, out on track for qualifying. They have to share the track in and amongst themselves, which you can tell is a relatively difficult proposition with the 38 GT3 cars that are out there and rolling. We'll take the time, though, to thank those that make this possible, starting with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminium profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, our button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and get a 5% discount also using the Precision 5 coupon code. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And last but not least, Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsport. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver today. Not sure how quickly Advanced Motorsports could get you up to speed with a track like this, and well, maybe it's not a surprise so far in what has been a pretty interesting series of qualifying sessions in 2024 to see Jim Felice back towards the top.
Well, remember what I said, Arjuna, about this being the opportunity for a new name to come up for maybe some unpredictability? Well, look at the top 4, Jim Felice, Osborne, Fenson, Carollo. You know what those 4 names have in common? They're the only 4 drivers to win a race so far this season. So the track has changed entirely. We're going to somewhere completely different, and yet the top 4 in the standings haven't changed whatsoever.
Sully Sard's up to 9th. Now, how many pole positions have we seen Felice have so far this year? So, okay, two pole positions. So my memory was serving me well. Steffi's up to 4th. But even outside of those 2 poles, hasn't he been up toward the front a bit more frequently than we've seen in years past? Which, the reason I bring this up is, you know how we graduated Gary Brown from Midtown to Uptown? We need to have a similar sort of promotion here for the number 5.
Maybe, but I don't think Jim is entirely there yet. He's had his best season ever. He's been very, very fast. Won his first race all the way back in round 1 at Aragon, but since then he's been falling down a little bit. He had a DNS in round 3, so that's had to serve as his drop week. And other than that, it's been a little bit inconsistent. Had a bad week last week at wherever we were last week, Suzuka. Now that I remember, yeah, he's been up and down
last week, didn't you?
I did, but he's been up and down. I think we can keep the promotion chat for maybe next season if he wins the championship.
You just need to. You have high expectations. That's all we're saying. Alex Wright, no improvement for him in the 603 lunatic machine. He will get this lap, and that will be it, because lap times around 148s, 149s. Less than that, of course, on the qualifying clock. But as long as you start a lap, you'll be entitled to finish it, and that's what Jim Felice is going to be doing right now. Although I think he's just come out of pit lane, so in a fixed setup qualifying series, I'd be impressed if he's able to go a little bit faster with a full tank of fuel again.
See what he can do. Right on board for a little bit here into turn 1. This is San Donato, famous for potentially being the only real overtaking opportunity at this place. So you're going to be seeing a lot of turn 1, and then these middle sectors are just so difficult. It is constantly high speed, high commitment, and very little in terms of braking. Doesn't look like Jim's taking it really full speed right now. Hopping over the curb there in turn 4, and then through San Lorenzo at turn 5. There's a lot of opportunity for getting it a little bit wide and losing your momentum all the way through the middle sector. Then you throw it down the hill here, very, very steep. It's almost like you're driving down the side of a canyon, and you have to hope not to get a little bit too wide there because you get a lot of that green curb to play with. If you go that little bit too far over and end up in the gravel, you're getting off track and your whole lap's disallowed.
And I think that's exactly what we've just seen there. So now we'll have to try and figure out if anyone's going to be able to improve. There's William Fenson. He's still out there on a lap in the number 88 machine, although I don't know if timing's showing him as improving. Osborne and Steffi are done as it stands right now, so if there is going to be an improvement, it will come from elsewhere. There's Carollo, who's just come towards the line and has not improved by his own volition, so it leaves Joseph Carnes out there as well inside of the top 10. I see Rob Campbell circulating and has a chance potentially as well, but doesn't look like many drivers improving with the checkered flag now officially out for qualifying.
Carnes could improve, though. He was very, very strong in qualifying last week at Suzuka. Put it P4 on the grid, and pretty much his best qualifying ever in the PRL. We'll see if he can maybe go one more here or two more and end up in the top 4 again. Only a couple more seconds until the line. It's full throttle here. Make that Ferrari as loud and fast as humanly possible in a straight line. I don't know if it is tracking well. 48.6, that's going to be P2 for Carnes.
What a lap in the 8:37, flying Ferrari at the closing stages. You see a couple of drivers practicing pit lane entries. Tyler Graf is probably going to do so as well, and so I think that is officially session done and dusted. That's Dale Peterson, by the way, no longer in a highlighter yellow machine. Makes it slightly more difficult to pick out where he is. I think he might be hoping that it keeps him out of incidents, though, all things considered. Buck Hamilton will be one that decides to come and finish a flying attempt at the closing stages of the session. 49.4 to beat. Line, no improvement for him. He'll stay down in 17th spot.
And that's another situation with a very new track. You see a driver like Buck Hamilton. We usually see him qualifying in the top 10, but he hasn't been able to figure this place out as quickly as some of his other rivals. And he's going to be starting a little bit deeper in the order than he's used to. He's going to be looking forward 16 spots ahead of him. That's not what he's used to.
And reason that it was probably crucial that a couple of drivers practice pit lane entries in the closing stages of that qualifying session is if you're new to the world of the Precision Racing League GT3 series, we have a limited fuel capacity on these cars once we go racing. And so, well, the driver's not so concerned about whether it's left to the paddock or right to the viewing area. The one thing they will have to know is there's a pit stop probably coming in the last, 5 to 15 minutes of the race, Joey? Somewhere in that range?
Somewhere around there. I say it's between minute 35 and minute 0.
Oh, okay, you're trying to now just make it completely wide open.
Exactly.
See, I was trying to provide a little bit of clarity, a little bit of closure, although having said that, we weren't very good at that on strategy yesterday. See left side of your screen, 1 second is going to split the top 20, which when we come to a new track like this is not actually that bad with the lap time as big as it is at a track like this too. It's going to be interesting on the start because unfamiliar to many drivers, rising up into turn 1 in many ways. I'm not sure which line of the track I'd rather be on.
Well, remember a couple years ago when F1 came here for the first and only time and they had their safety car restart and it all went horrifically wrong on the front straight? The driver stewards did warn all the drivers, make sure you're keeping a consistent speed in the start here. We don't want to see any Antonio Giovinazzis flipping down the front straight this time.
I mean, I don't know about you. I definitely don't, but co-commentators have said crazier things in the past on RaceSpotTV.
Yeah, I'm thinking who I would want to flip the most. I think I'll reveal that at the end of the broadcast.
Well, the reason I'm sort of faffing around is because, if you can't tell, we've got a full flying formation lap with which to work through the starting grid, which means no real time pressure with which to do so, but it is going to give us plenty of time to read through how they'll line up. And so as they begin to roll, it is Jim Feliz on the front of the grid. Let's not forget, third time this season, Joseph Collins will be alongside with his Wright Osborne in the Audi, rolling with the 88 of William Fenton. Jay Steffi and Jeff Carollo will share row 3 on the grid, about 4/10 off of the pace with Evan Mackay, and then Rob Campbell, 7th and 8th positions. Felix Felice, Tyler Graf, 9th and 10th with Sally Sard and Brett Thurman just missing out on a top 10 starting spot. 13th for Andrew Ellis, 14th for Ross Sortino in the B&O Racing number 20. Andrew Rasmussen and Jason Finch share row number 8. Buck Hamilton and Dale Peterson share row number 9, with 19th for Andrew Trickett, 20th for Colin McKenzie. David Morris rolls 21st, alongside with Waldo Walden in the SGE Esports number 84. Alex Wright's got Ian Cabana for company down on row 12, with 25th going the way of Christopher Rhines, 26th the way of Devin Brock, and then Travis Pruitt and Neil Alexander behind, 27th and 28th. Bookending the top 30 will be Luke Davis and Kevin Bergquist, almost 2 seconds off of the pace, respectively. Nicholas Johnson, Robert Jeffries, 31st and 32nd, with Jordan Walker, Ryan Lerner, Drew DeWeese, and then Steve Bammer through the top 36. And we still have 2 more drivers with which to work. Brett Accord and then Sean Mulholland will roll at the very back of the starting grid. They're still yet to go on their formation lap, so we've got a little bit more time to go and take a look at some of those driver webcams for today. William Fenson's giving us a ride, I guess in virtual reality, but it's also from a camera that's perched in real reality, looking at virtual reality. He's got Jeff Carolla to his right-hand side, Evan Mackay, Ian Cabana, and then Tyler Graf, who's once again got the video, but what track are we at? That looks like Homestead.
Well, I'm feeling a little bit like Evan Mackay here, dazed and confused with William Fenson's thing. That is his monitor, so we're seeing what he's seeing in virtual reality, but the camera isn't moving, even though it looks like it's moving. Don't look at that. Don't look at that for the rest of the show if you don't want to throw up, because I'm already getting vertigo from that.
Oh, he's moving his head now. Oh.
Yeah, but you can see the taskbar on the bottom isn't moving. That's terrible. I'm on the vomit comet right now.
You said it, not me. Drivers like giving us the views in VR, just not that view, please.
I love you, William Fenson, but I might have to get you to pay for some ginger ale after this, because that's just funky and screwing up the brain.
Well, as they jink back and forth, still getting ready to go here. 35 minutes will go onto the clock, estimated around 20 or so laps of racing action. Of course, the later you go into the race, the more confident, the more accurate you can be with the amount of fuel that you will throw into the car. We've come from Suzuka, which is tight in its own regard, but is, I think, somewhat similar in that, Joey, there's tight and twisty corners and then one long straight to try and take advantage of.
I call this the Suzuka of Italy. That's going to be my new name for Mugello. Starting today, I do, because it's got S's. It doesn't have the crossover. Fiorano does, so maybe Fiorano's actually the Suzuka of Italy, but I think this is actually going to race somewhat similar. There's a very good passing opportunity in turn 1. Basically, the entirety of the rest of the track is tight and twisty and very high speed, so maybe I'm onto something here.
Yeah, no, I did think about the figure 8 for a second, although I didn't realize until recently, and I say recently, when Formula 1 came back here, that Ferrari actually owned this track, so as much as, we think of Monza as the home of Ferrari when Formula 1 goes there, it's really not that much, is it?
Well, we know there's no conspiracy because a Ferrari isn't on pole, it's a Porsche.
Ooh, but there's a conspiracy because Joseph Carnes is alongside. So the conspiracy hasn't fully worked.
If the spirit of Enzo and his wife were here, Joe Carnes would be on the pole right now, but he's second, and old William Fenson's only 4th. Or maybe that's a trick. Maybe it's a whole psyop here, and they're tricking us into thinking there's not a conspiracy when there actually is.
Maybe this is also just BOP games. It's better to be second in qualifying, first in the race at the end of the day. They'll be on the outside heading into turn 1, so they've got a little bit of an intriguing avenue with which to work. This is a track which has seen plenty of two-wheel racing, of course, so it does lend itself to some flowing sections, and I think at the end of the lap, there's an interesting sequence just before the long left-hander that brings you back down. Not a passing opportunity by any means, but chances, I think, where we'll see drivers just heating up the tires and maybe putting themselves in their own world of hurt. Prediction time. Who comes out on top, Joey, as we get ready to go racing at Mugello here with the GT3s for the very first time?
I'm going with trends this season. I'm rooting for the pole sitter. I'm saying that Jim Felice is going to win, but I'm going to go Italian and say actually that Jim Felice is going to win.
Okay, but you're not going Ferrari.
No.
You're going Porsche.
I hate Italians.
There's the conspiracy already. Pace cars are going to peel off and away. It's a Porsche. Oh my goodness, the conspiracy is building. Jim Felice, for the third time this season, has got a clear track ahead of him and is ready to get the green flag flying here in the Precision Racing League GT3 Fix Series. He will drop the hammer. We're racing at Mugello, and behind, where does Joseph Barnes go to try and defend? I think William Fenton's already alongside and maybe past Isaiah Osborne, all before they're onto the anchors for the very first time. It's too wide for third and fourth or so. Plenty more squabbling further behind. What a great launch for Felice, though, as it's first right and now left that the cars will work. Single file increasingly you'll see through the field, and that's one that's gone around. Sully Sard stricken in a very dangerous position, but not many others getting tangled up in that. Only Jason Finch, I see on the timing screen, has an issue. Other than that, Joey, not a bad start.
I think Joe Carnes is going to be wishing it was a little bit better of a start for him, though. Jim Felice got a fantastic jump, pulled a couple of car lengths into turn one, and Carnes couldn't do anything. And you see now down the hill through Casanova and through Savelli coming into the two Arabiatas. Carnes is about 10 car lengths back. He's going to be nowhere near within draft range once they get back to the front straight in half a lap's time. He's got to do some work here in the final sector.
Nothing spicy through the double right-handers this time by, but still with only 60 seconds burned off the clock. How aggressive will these drivers be on the fixed setups? Let's not forget that they're dealing with. That's Tyler Graf duking it out with Evan Mackay as we come down in towards now what will be the final sector of the lap. Half lunge attempted there in front by Rob Campbell potentially, but as we come towards the final sequence of corners, still Jim Felice with a 1.2 second advantage, and this is where drivers behind still trying to decide how much they want to fight.
You don't want to be side-by-side through there, and Evan Mackay and Felix Felice come together on exit. They're going to take each other into the wall. Poor old Andrew Rasmussen as well. Nowhere to go. He ends up in the concrete, and that was a big, big off through the second Biandetti.
And so now, as we come to the end of the opening lap, still 1 second at the front, yes, but it's got plenty for us to go and dice our way through. Rasmussen straight down to the pit lane as well, so clearly some lasting damage to his machine. 10 cars at the front now trying to break away, as Ross Sortino in the B&O Racing number 20 up the inside with Hamilton and Peterson tucked in behind, and now cycling up the hill in towards the left-hander. These are drivers that have to now work together and try to close to those in front.
I do wonder about Ross Sortino. This is a guy who won multiple races last season, who was almost a championship contender, was very fast last week at Suzuka as well. It looked like a return to form for him, but he's back down outside the top 10, not quite figuring out Mugello. See if he can get the rhythm back over the next 32 minutes.
See if we can go and take a look at some of the replays then from the start of the race. And I guess the main thing to try and figure out is what happened to Sully Sard.
There's the carousel of entertainment. Looks like he got hit by, I think, the 37 behind, potentially, or the 67, or the somethings, the 27, even, dare I say, Neil Alexander, and then the 13 of Jason Finch. That was just an extra punch there.
I mean, let's try and figure out what happens before we pass any judgment. So here's the Finches onwards. Sard's had the issue totally in front. Doesn't hold the brakes, and then I think attracts the ire of Jason Finch, who, I mean, that's just not on no matter what.
He hit his ghost, though. I think he almost got lucky with the timing there. That was very unfortunate. I don't know who that was, truly, who ended up hitting Sod in the first place that turned him around. I think it was the 27, but there's seemingly every single combination of cars with the number 7 in this series, and I can't tell which one it was.
Yeah, that is half the problem. Down on pit lane, though, also involved somehow Evan Mackay, and so maybe there was something that happened there. 1.3 at the front as we end lap 2, though, still with Felice clear from Carnes, and just see running behind. Then Osborne, Fenton, Carollo, Campbell, Steffi, Graf, even going back a little bit further, still in draft range to Felix Felice and Andrew Ellis. It's a really tense sort of a moment right now as we jump on board with Azariah Osborne in that number 7. You can see some tire marks off in the gravel. It's one of those tracks where you've got to be so precise.
Well, I don't know how Felix Felice is still in the top 10, because he was involved in that crash at the end of lap 1 with Rasmussen and Mackay. He must have heavy damage on that Porsche, and he's He's seemingly still up there perfectly fine. Let's see. Let's diagnose it. Is there anything wrong with the left side of that car? No, looks perfectly fine. Is there anything wrong with the right side of the car? No, it looks perfectly fine. And also, there's our diagnosis. Andrew Ellis was the responsible party behind Sully Slot on lap 1. We finally solved the mystery.
Oh, did you? Ooh, okay. Look, we'll go back and take a look at the replay on board with the responsible number 7 in the mix. And you're right, it was a number 7.
It was, but there's the 17 of Andrew Ellis, the 27 of Neil Alexander, the 67 of Steve Bammer, the 7 of Isaiah Osborne, the 97 of Jeff Carolla, the 837 of Joe Carnes. There's so many 7s. Everybody loves a 7.
I mean, there are, to be fair...
I didn't even get to the 57 of Buck Hamilton.
In a series like this, when there are so many drivers, you're probably going to get a fair amount of overlap. Here's the look on board with the 17 of Andrew Ellis.
Let's see. And the 247 of Jay Steffi as well, for that matter. But now time to focus in... Oh, actually, no involvement whatsoever. Forgive me, Andrew Ellis. Totally exonerated. Had nothing to do with that. That was Sully, I think, making contact with another car. We'll take a look at the helicopter perspective here, because I don't know if Sully actually made contact with anybody, or if he just lost it totally on his own. He's perfectly fine here, and he's got one of the... Oh, that's what caused it. Had one of the SGE Porsches in front of him. A little bit of a bonk to the back, and that's what turned him around.
And then you can also see this slight just rolling backwards that ended up tangling up with Jason Finch as well. So we had 38 cars on our grid. Only 35 ended up seeing the green, 4 of whom have retired. And now we continue just to track your leaders as down through the right-hander they will go. We talked about some of the drivers with the virtual reality looks in the webcams. This is one track where I actually think that being in VR might be an advantage, just trying to get a better sense for some of these corners and how to roll the speed. Carnes is really struggling right now. Has dropped another second back of your race leader. Osborne with nowhere to go though. So through turn 10, now through 11, the left-hander. Gap opens up to your race leader.
In a place, or in a track where literally every single corner is a high-speed sweeper, this place rewards consistency unlike any other place. You need to be on the line. You need to be in the rhythm every single lap, because if you're off one single apex, you're paying for it for 3 or 4 corners afterwards. It's so difficult to get the momentum back. So virtual reality is going to help a lot in that aspect. You're going to be able to see the apexes that little bit easier, especially in some of the blind corners. But it's also a place where practice is going to be rewarded. You don't have heavy braking zones like you would necessarily at Suzuka, where you can recover a lot of time, where you can go for moves. You need to be on it every single corner of every single lap, and you can only get that level of precision with a lot of practice.
Just looking at the way that the Ferrari versus the Audi battle's going down the straight, not like the Ferrari has a particular top-end advantage, but by no means is Osborne really closing in on second position. If anything, Carnes actually brought down the margin to the race leader, just using the grunt of the engine on that straight. What's behind as William Fenton tries to set it up? It would have been lovely to be able to take a look at the VR perspective of William Fenton, but I don't think I want to make Joey sick again.
I'm going to shield my eyes. I'm going to look away. I'm going to make sure I don't see the movement and the non-movement, and then trigger whatever goes on in your... Oh, no, there it is. Luckily, it's the frame rate's dropped enough that I think we're okay for a moment.
Is it not making you too sick?
There we go. Now we're back. Yeah, now... Well, he's not turning his head yet. This is good, because he's got his head just pointed straight. He's not turning at all, which is interesting to me. I wonder if he's... No, now he's moving. He's definitely still active.
Yeah, it's a weird VR perspective, that is for sure. We'll have to see.
I like it though, but Mr. Fenson, next week, if I may give you one suggestion, just tilt the camera up a couple of inches so we can only see the moving part and not the still part.
I thought your suggestion was going to be paint related, by the way, because it would be good if William Fenson could click the right button in the iRacing paint shop so his numbers move to the right place where his number boards are.
He's a maverick. He's just trying to do something different. He's putting them in a different spot.
Yeah. What I will say is Rolex 24. Did you watched plenty of it, right, Joey?
I did.
Did you notice that there was one particular car in the GT3 class that had a slightly different number font than the rest of the machines in the field?
I didn't.
Yeah, that Ferrari with the 023, the fake number.
Well, I do like I love a leading 0.
It's a fake number.
I love a leading zero. Big fan. Opens up lots of number diversity. But yeah, I guess they're fitting a three-digit number into there. And
No. I'm pretty sure
it's
this
just totally
was,
different.
I'm
Not
pretty
even just
sure
squeeze.
this just slid through. This was not Arial Bold, which is the standard font required for IMSA numbers. No, this was something else entirely.
Well, when you're Mr. Tree RC and you own every Ferrari in the state of Florida, I guess you can do whatever you want.
Well, the 23 had the right font. You see, this is how nerdy we can be about paints. But when you're there in person, I will say, small things like that very obvious, as well as it's very obvious when your number is on the wrong part of your paint, unfortunately. Back in the queue, let's go and check out some of the other battles that we have, because it's not like a track like this has its fair share of passing opportunities, and so oftentimes you'll get drivers stuck behind. Colin McKenzie's got a queue built behind him for 15th spot.
He's starting to run away a little bit, though, so it might not be a McKenzie train for long. It might start to be a David Morse train, so Colin can breathe for just a moment. But this is the reality of Mugello. It's so difficult to pass. I can't say it enough times that there's only one really good passing opportunity here. So if you're stuck in a line, if you're doing as well as you possibly can, you're not going to be able to overtake unless you're a couple tenths faster per lap, or there's a mistake from the car ahead right here out of the final corner, and you can pounce on the front straight. Other than that, you're going to be riding in line and maybe hoping to save a little bit of fuel to potentially make the move in the pit stop that's coming up in a couple minutes.
Yeah, and again, with the fixed setup that these drivers are all dealing with, it does seem as though they have copious amounts of downforce that do help them through the twistier corners, but not necessarily differentiating them on the straights. That was Rob Campbell with a half-hearted look at the inside of Jeff Carollo, who went then a little bit deep, but outside becomes inside as the cars now switch back over to the left and back now to the right. It's a really interesting sequence for, I'm sure, these more lumbering GT machinery to deal with compared to a open-wheel car like when Formula One first came back here. And if you want to experience what Lewis Hamilton must feel like, well, you can't drive a Ferrari around here just yet on iRacing, but you can go back and relive the glory days of him in a W12.
Exactly. We've got the... Is it the 2020 car, or is it the 2021 car?
It's
2021.
22. Because we have 2022 and 2023, don't we?
No, we have 2021 and 2022.
There you go.
I think. Am I right?
You're probably more right than me.
I'm going to look this up right, because we have the one from the old regulations and the one from the new regulations. So
yes.
it is the 2021 car. But it's the 2021 Mercedes is basically identical to the 2020 Mercedes. I'm sure F1 tech people will get very mad at me for saying that, but they're similar enough when you drive them.
You've just triggered someone on Twitter, which is not saying much.
The front wing end plate is different by 6 centimeters. Mm-hmm. The regulations didn't change year after year. They're as identical as you could want as a sim racer.
I think, if anything, the 2020 car was probably a little bit faster in terms of regulations, but may not have been as developed because, 2020. That was Tyler Graf down on pit lane, wasn't it? Indeed it was. So, Joey, you had made the bold call that pit window is a little bit more open than I was saying. 22 minutes left to go. We've got our first taker to the lane.
Well, this is a track where you expend a lot of fuel because there's not a lot of low-speed corners, so Tyler Graf is saying, you know what, I know we're going to expend a lot of fuel, but I'm going to open up the pit window. I'm going to come in a little bit early here and take it all the way to the end. I hope he's not come down too early, though. He's got no friends on pit lane right now. It is literally just him and a damaged SRT car in front. And he'll come out in no traffic, though. He'll come out in totally clean air.
That's going to be of benefit to him, although I think he might have Jason Finch that's just rolled past. So Graf down in 28th, now 29th position, but has the advantage of now being able to just push maybe a bit harder and take advantage of a hard-charging Jason Finch, who's trying to recover after his own little spills at the start. Another dalliance through with the double right-handers for the second on-back train as Joseph Carnes now 3 odd seconds back from Feliz and running a bit wide out of turn 10. Doesn't compromise him too much, but Osborne just closes once again, and now Jinx to the inside. Can't come in under the brakes, but had a look.
He did have a look, and that was the textbook example of Carnes missing one apex and having to miss the next one directly after that. Unfortunately for Israya, that was not an opportune overtaking place. That Corintaio, very high-speed corner, very long radius. You can't really outbrake somebody there unless you're totally alongside them, and he didn't even have a nose alongside. But coming out of the final corner here, that is Carnes very, very wide again. Scuppered his momentum, had to lift out of the throttle just that little bit, turn the wheel that little bit more. Osborne's going to be in the draft now, but I don't know if he has the straight line speed to make anything happen in turn 1.
No, that Audi just doesn't seem to be able to get through the gears quick enough to really be able to challenge. It's going to take mistakes in the infield, and then Osborne being in a place to pounce. Just look at William Fenson's really closed up to the back bumper of the Audi in his own little hunt to try and look forward into a podium spot. 15 minutes complete. Still got 20 minutes left to run. If you are, let's say, potentially someone like Jay Steffi, you're in 7th spot, you're in this train for 2nd, you now have 4 seconds behind. I would start to think about whether I'd come down pit lane, because that was a mistake from William Fenson, and now Carollo's going to look up the inside.
He's definitely going to be thinking about it. Fenson is thinking about how can I get back on the rhythm here on the inside for the next corner, but Campbell's going to get around him. Steffi almost got around him, threw it into the gravel though. Maybe a little bit of target fixation, carrying too much momentum through that part of the track. If I was him, I'd be minimizing my losses right now. If I was Fenson as well, I'd be coming down pit lane this time. I've lost enough time. I might as well get myself out of traffic and try and do something in the pit lane.
Yep, you've seen, by the way, as well, the gap to your race leader just continuing to grow. So Jim Felice looks very, very confident here at this new track to the Precision Racing League schedule, and hopefully one that will remain as a firm fixture in the years to come, as that's a lot of liberal track usage there from Israya Osborne, but clearly is able to get away with it and not too concerned about 8 incident points, B slowdowns, which would maybe be your larger consideration when you go 4 wheels over the white lines, even at a Tilcadrome style track like this now, with the way the track limits have evolved. No one in this grouping coming down to pit lane, though it would seem interesting that they don't think it's worth it.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't minimize your losses there, but maybe they see back in the pack that there's a little bubble of traffic. That is something you have to consider as well. When you come down pit lane earlier, before anybody else does, it's very possible that you end up in deep traffic at the back of the field. People who are slower than you who will hold you up. Luke Davis, though, he's already in the middle of the field, and he knows that if he pits right now, he's going to go all the way to the back of the field, and there's nowhere with air cleaner than the back of the field where there's nobody back there. Yeah,
and well, he could sure be a lunatic back there. It's now just a question of, just like Tyler Graf, can he take advantage of that? Graf still behind Jason Finch, if you're curious. You can follow live timing by heading to PRL.RaceSpot.TV over the course of tonight's double header. And that, of course, will give you insight into pit stop timings as well, where Tyler Graf stationary for about 11.2 seconds compares to 10.5 for Ian Cabana, 11.8 for Luke Davis. So seeing a bit of variance already, although those are drivers with less certainty about how much fuel to put in the car.
And think about those pit lane times when you're thinking about Israya Osborne and Campbell and Steffi and Fenson and everybody who might pit. Add about 35 seconds. Mathematically, we can say that's probably about 30 seconds considering you're rolling through pit lane. If these guys pit, they're coming out directly behind the likes of Robert Jeffries and Jordan Walker and Jason Finch. There is deep traffic at the back of the field. So I think that's exactly why we haven't seen any of these guys come out of this train and come down pit lane, because if they do, they're getting held up more than they would be getting held up by these faster guys up front.
Still no takers, at least inside of the top 5, as we check in with Jeff Carollo. Definitely no Mugello above him in terms of track maps. No, right? I'm not crazy.
No Mugello. I don't think he's going to add it after today. He's not having a bad day, but it's not a Jeff Carollo quality day, unfortunately. Just a P4 for him. But maybe if he wins here next season, maybe if we come back, I imagine this is going to be a long-standing track on the iRacing schedule. So he'll get one race out of the way this time, and we'll see next time if he decides to go back to his winning ways.
Now, I'm just watching on his screen directly in front of him. There's a big red thing. We don't see it on our screen because that's information that the team at iRacing sometimes doesn't think is competitively worth sharing, and it should be protected. Now, is that a fuel warning or is that a tire pressure warning? It's one of the two. It could be tire pressure, it could be just the way the car is set up. It could be fuel, and he could be very close to needing to come down to the lane.
Or it could just be the flag of Tunisia. We have no idea.
No, it's definitely not that, I can promise you.
Maybe he's repping him. Maybe we don't know about his nationality, but we'll see. We'll get the answer to that in about half a lap's time, because it is possible, but we haven't seen anybody else really come down pit lane near him. So if it was really starting to be a concern that there wasn't enough fuel to go a lap further, I think we would have seen a lot more people come in the previous lap. So I think he can go a little bit longer, but I could be proven wrong in about 5 quarters time.
We're probably coming towards the end of a window, though, surely, if the car is telling you that you're getting down on the fuel. None of these drivers, again, will peel off to the right. We know that drivers can come in as late as 5 minutes to go. Jay Steffi does blink, so one driver decides enough's enough and decides it's time to roll the gamble on pit lane.
But now, will the gamble pay off? Because there are a lot of drivers in that 40-second behind the leader range who could be traffic for Jay Steffi. He's got Andrew Trickett behind him, following him in. But what Steffi really needs here is he needs some of those guys running from about 21st to 27th to come down pit lane this time and get out of his way. Because right now, as things are tracking, you see a hungry pack of cars coming up in the background. Steffi's going to come out directly behind some of them.
Well, behind may not be so bad as long as he's not in the thick of everything. He will slide out, I think, in front of... Ooh, Jordan Walker is just coming up the road, but not going to be close enough.
He's found the bubble. He's found the bubble. He did a better job of calculating than me. He saw that some of those guys behind him actually came down pit lane. He's got 3 seconds in front and behind him.
Got to remember, on pit exit here, you can't come drivers left until very late on, so it means that you're blending in a high-speed corner in a bit of a safer way. So Jay Steffi's found the margin and now has to try and get his tires fired back up and push just that little bit more to leapfrog effectively. Remember, he came in from 7th position. He wants to try and get as much as 5-6 positions gained to jump up onto the podium spots.
I don't know if I was seeing things there, but that looked like a little bit of a slide from Joe Carnes coming down through Arrabbiata. He was getting a little bit dicey through there. Jim Feliz is looking okay. He's got no problems with those tires, but those tires are definitely going to start suffering right now. It's all high speed around here. Tires are not really built to take high speed corners for 35 minutes straight, especially in the heat of the Italian spring. So he might start sliding a little bit, might be suffering when the checkered flag comes in 13 minutes.
Starting to see more and more drivers off to pit lane. Andrew Ellis is going to be in, followed by Ross Ortino. So that's 2 drivers from just within the top 10 that peel off and away, followed now by David Morse, Alex Wright, Devin Brock. So here comes that field, and importantly as well for Jay Steffi, who's starting to close on those in front, and only 10.5 seconds stationary in the box for him. So a pretty quick stop, all things considered, as the drivers that he's, of course, chasing down now still running out there and trying to take advantage of low fuel quantities in the car. Starting now to split up as well behind as the pit lane is increasingly busy. Oh boy, look at this.
Some big Grello action at the head, and then about 1,000 other cars coming in simultaneously. Basically, the bottom half of the field said, this lap is the lap we're all coming down pit lane. The top half of the field said exactly the opposite thing and said we're going 1 lap longer, but I think that tells us that the pit window isn't actually as wide as it seemed like it was. Everybody tending to come in on about lap 13 or likely lap 14 this time around. If there's an optimal strategy, everybody's likely going to find it and follow it. You don't necessarily want to go too far off that if everybody is agreeing on the same strategy.
No, exactly. Ezra Osborne feeling pressure from Carollo now, as I think we are expecting your leaders in this time by. Feliz has actually got some traffic in front. That's the 23 of Drew DeWeese, who's the last car on the lead lap, and will stay on the lead lap because driver's right goes your leader. Expect the rest of the field behind to filter in behind too. So pit lane will be busy. And oh, there's a deep send of commitment from William Fenton. And somehow I think Rob Campbell's rear end has stayed intact.
Well, that was almost a Sebastian Vettel pit lane overtake. If Fenton got away with that, if he got it slowed down, he probably could have kept that position. But I think he was a little bit too committed had to slam on the brakes and couldn't hold the momentum to stay ahead of Campbell. But I hope after all the drama's over, we can take a look at that again, because that was almost a beautifully executed overtake. It just didn't end as well as we would have liked, and he's going to come out behind all of these guys, and Osborne loses 4 spots as well.
And so it was a very quick stop from Jim Felice, shortest of them all. He has been saving fuel while building his gap up front. There comes Jay Steffi. Remember, tires up to pressure and the ability to come in with a head of steam, and will come in just behind Isaiah Osborne. Of course, Rob Campbell's already taken a little bit of an advantage as well. Jay Steffi only gets 1 position gain by virtue of the very, very big undercut, but as the rest of the drivers around him still trying to settle into rhythm, Joseph Carnes, amongst all of that, now has a little bit more of a gap to Carollo, who's got Rob Campbell behind.
Yeah, he can afford to breathe a little bit. He can feel a little bit more comfortable, but he can't feel that comfortable because Carollo is directly behind him. He's going to be charging. He's going to be moving forward. Rob Campbell's going to be doing the same thing in the fight for the podium. Isaiah Osborne, he's got a very large gap now to Rob Campbell himself. He's got his own work to do before he can even think about the podium. Didn't lose 4 spots as I thought he might. He lost 2 spots on pit lane, but that's still a lot, and that's the difference between the podium and just finishing in the top 5.
Haven't talked championship so much in the previous 25 minutes, but with 10 minutes to go. No Venkataraju, of course, in the field means that this will effectively mean that he's now going to take a step back in the championship after the DNF last time out. It will give Isaiah Osborne still have the lead, but Carollo Campbell will close the margin if it finished as is. Osborne not going to throw anything away, though, given that he's, of course, still got a 25-point advantage at this stage in the championship.
Well, don't forget about Jim Felice. Jim is only 40 points off Osborne in the championship. He's already taken his drop week, so that's a legitimate gap up to the championship lead. But if he wins this race, he'll get 56 points for starting on pole and winning the race. And if he gets the fastest lap, he'll get an extra point for that, bring him up to 57, whereas Isaiah Osborne is right now in P5. That's only 46 points. That is a 10-point difference. If Felice gets 10 points on Osborne every single week to the end of the season, he wins the race on a tiebreak. There's your math.
Yes. One other thing that I'm just thinking about as well is how comfortable will Isaiah Osborne feel in the Audi, knowing where we're going to in some of the tracks coming up. Road Atlanta, for example, next time out. That's a track where the curbs can be quite unfriendly to the Audi. If you need to attack them, especially, for example, through the opening sector of the lap. Okayama should be pretty equal across the manufacturers, you'd have to feel. Also one where drivers probably have plenty of experience in slower powered cars. And then a trip to the mountain where Audi has so many accolades, including the unofficial lap record that has actually seen real-world GT3 cars dip below 2 minutes around the mountain. But it's a difficult car to tame at Mount Panorama, I'll be completely honest.
I think if we need to give him a real Audi challenge, we could get the Paris to Dakar route scanned in iRacing. The real one, not the Saudi Arabia one,
okay,
the real one.
Say, yeah, the good one, the actual
where you
one.
have to ride on a ferry from Gibraltar to Morocco, and you have to drive through the villages of Mauritania. Give me the whole real thing.
Let's give it a nice old school feel when it comes to cars as well. That's what we would have to do. Which classic Audi? Not the GTO Audi that we have on iRacing now, but maybe we could get one of the Group B rally cars or something.
Maybe. I kind of want to see just this Audi, just this current GT3 Audi, see how long it lasts on the desert dunes before it dies.
See, that's no fun because Porsche's now made a version of the 911 that realistically probably could actually go and run a decent amount of the Dakar Rally without too much extra modifications needing to be made to it. So if we're going to go and run GT3 cars, Porsche are just going to be very sneaky and mix things in.
There's also a lot of those really just bizarre rallies in the past. If you start reading into the history of rally and rally raid, they would just do anything in the 1970s. They'd say, you know what? I want to go from London to Niger and then back to Munich, 12,000 miles, and then they just be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's get 20 other cars to do this with us. Totally normal.
Yeah, that's the joys of just.
Or there was the London to Sydney marathon which was a rally raid. That's not even geographically possible.
It's just the, well, I mean, it depends if you need a flying car. Is what you need is,
yes.
Robert Jeffrey has a spinning car and also has his numbers in the wrong place, by the way, so another one that needs to click the right button on the right screen, but we'll go ahead and try and take a look at what happened to him, and then we'll also get that replay queued up for, well, potential drama on pit lane entry.
Let's see, coming up through San Donato, perfectly fine through there, then through Luco, it is a spin around. That's some overheated tires. They're going to be even more overheated after that. Here's William Fenton. This is after his little overtake coming onto pit lane. He was actually fine. He made the overtake, and I think he ceded to Rob Campbell. I think he thought he maybe got a little bit too aggressive there.
Well,
he did hit him. There was a little bit of contact, but I don't know if either of them actually got damage from that.
I think the reason why he gave it back up was because you could see on our side that he disappeared from the world for a second, and so I think maybe just thought not worth risking anything and slotted back into line. He's ended up a little bit behind Jay Steffi now and struggling to hold on. The race leader is still 4.4 seconds clear, but Karn's a little bit more comfortable in the second phase of the race. Still 5 minutes to go. By no means going to challenge for the lead, but I'd say right now podium spots looking pretty secure.
Yeah, it's no London to Sydney marathon, but it certainly felt like a pretty long day so far. It's been very difficult, and Jay Steffi, unfortunately, I think he's been the next victim. He's lost a spot out to William Fenton. He's kept going, but unfortunately, all you ticker watchers, you've just seen Jay Steffi lose another spot from his one of his best runs ever in the PRL.
Strategy not going the way that maybe he would have thought, but ultimately he did come out into clean air. That was all that he could really have gambled on. So here comes Jim Feliz down through the long right-hander that will then spit him into a fast chicane, just with one more hairpin to go before he's back towards the line. Lap time's just under 2 minutes or so, so he'll come around to take what will be 2 laps left to run in this race, and 2 laps left to go for him to transition another pole position into another victory.
And this has been his best season ever in the PRL so far. It hasn't been necessarily championship winning yet. He's been a little bit too inconsistent for that, but this is the start of the second half of his season. We've only got 4 rounds to go, 3 rounds after this. If he can keep these winning ways, if he can win his way all the way to the end, he's definitely going to be in championship conversation for the first time after winning his first race this season. And who knows what could happen. Maybe he could go for 2 in a row and we'll see him in the sprint series in a couple seasons.
Jeff Carollo might have had a bad exit out of that final corner because Rob Campbell has breezed on past to grab the final spot on the podium. And at the same time, drama further down the field as we check in with the 27 of Neil Alexander. This is in the opening couple of corners, so heading out of turn 3 and 4, check up in front, and, well, a couple of Porsches go off the road and are worse for the wear.
Yep, and that all started with one of the lunatic Ferraris. That's either Alex Wright or Luke Davis. Couldn't tell you which one it was, but he had a bad exit, checked up a little bit, and then there was nowhere for the 2 Porsches behind to go. Into the gravel, back onto the track. The 64 checks up, or the 54 rather checks up, and that's him and Neil Alexander collected, going to the back of the field. Poor old Mugello moment where it's very difficult to react after somebody's checking up that heavily in front of you.
And Neil Alexander's down on pit lane, so car took a bit of a whack and clearly not capable of finishing the remaining time, as limited as it may be in this event. So with now Jim Feliz heading towards the final corner for what will be the penultimate time. 4.5 seconds, still his margin behind. Porsches look pretty comfortable, pretty imperious, at least for what has been 18 laps and counting. 1 more lap to go at Mugello for your race leader in the SRT Esports machine. There's the Ferrari that's second, the Porsche that sits in third. Meanwhile, they've been able to put a bit of a gap on Israel Osborne, who has dropped to 5th position. Championship leader, though, will still be happy with that.
Yeah, he can afford to take a couple of L's. He can afford to finish 5th or 4th to the rest of the season, but he can't afford to lose momentum. He needs to still be in conversation for wins, in conversation for the podiums, because if he has a very bad week next week as he gets by some lap traffic there into turn 1, suddenly he's used his drop week, and suddenly he is far, far closer to the likes of Jim Feliz and Rob Campbell and Jeff Carollo, who are going to be looking at him with a big target on his back as the championship leader.
Yeah. And of course, we've seen drivers in the GT3 Fix Series go on win the championship and make the step up to GT3 Sprint Series. For Jeff Carollo, stayed to defend the championship, and it's been an interesting season, very much so, given that the Porsche that he has been consistently driving was very much the car in choice last year, and still very much has its favourites, but is maybe not as strong as some of its detractors would like to claim. Although Jim Felice is showing that in the right hands, it's still a very capable weapon.
Yep, he's been untouchable today. It's a 5-second margin of victory right now. Is probably going to stay that way for the entirety of the second half of this lap. Nobody's been able to touch him. Qualified on pole, faster than anybody in race pace as well. It's a good day to be named Jim Felice.
Yeah, lots of pace management, you'd probably say, coming out of Felice in the closing stages. Was able to notch another pole position in the qualifying session that preceded this, the third of the season, and now the second win for Jim Felice here at Mugello. He'll come out on top with a margin of victory of only, quote-unquote, 5 seconds from Carnes, Campbell, and Carollo. The rest of the top four, with points leader as Ryan Osborne completing that top 5. Fun little event, and let's not forget, we'll put 5 more minutes onto the clock. We'll give drivers some open setups. We'll go once again in the PRL GT3 Sprint Series.
And I don't want to get out of this without complimenting Joe Carnes. That's his best PRL result ever. He was in the GT3 Sprint Series for the past couple seasons, came down into the Fix Series, and he's showing that he has quite a bit of talent. He's honing his skills even more here, and that's his first podium. Who knows? Maybe his first win in that Ferrari could be coming before the end of the season.
Yeah, I know, and you know, Ferrari is a car that in terms of the championship, William Fenton, Waldo Walden, Buck Hamilton, those have been amongst the most consistent drivers in that machine. Not necessarily been blitzing the timesheets week in and week out. We'll wait for the final drivers to come to the line. We'll get the chance to grab a look at the race results, and then we'll hopefully get the chance to chat to some of the drivers as well. They have all decided to park themselves up at the outside of turn number 1, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's been a pretty nice day weather-wise here at Mugello so far.
Yeah, it looks beautiful. It's the Italian countryside. I'm sure they're growing all sorts of grapes and tomatoes and, unfortunately, olives. I'm sure there's lots of good stuff. Neil Alexander still has to make it to the finish, though. There's cars parked all around the track, but this is still an active racing circuit, and Neil Alexander's going to come through the final corner to win at Mugello. Congratulations, Neil. Make sure you clip the video just in those last 10 seconds.
And definitely don't include the left side of the picture either, as race results shuffle around, as iRacing computes and tabulates whatever it needs to and gets the results determined. We'll take a look through them, go down towards pit lane and talk to the drivers, and hopefully catch up with Jim Felice, Joseph Carnes, and Rob Campbell 1, 2, and 3. And ultimately, it was not that exciting, but it was tense, especially behind Carnes in second spot. Carollo, Osborne 4th and 5th, with William Fenton, Jay Steffi, and then Tyler Graf, Felix Felice, and Andrew Ellis making up the rest of the top 10. 11th for Ross Sortino, 12th for Buck Hamilton, and then 13th for Dale Peterson. Andrew Trickett, Colin McKenzie, and then David Morse, Alex Wright, Waldo Walden, Devin Brock, and Nicholas Johnson, all within about 35 seconds of your leader and inside of your top 20. And then Ian Cabana, Kevin Berquist, and the pair of Crikey Esports machines in front of Luke Davis in that Sure is a Lunatic car that checked up a couple in the closing stages. Ryan Luna, Jason Finch, Jordan Walker, Robert Jeffrey, Steve Bammer, Travis Pruitt, and Neil Alexander through the top 30. 1 lap down for Drew DeWeese, who stayed out of trouble as a laps machine. Brett Thurman then 6 laps down as we get into the used car lot. Sully Saad, Evan Mackay, Andrew Rasmussen, Christopher Rines, Sean Mulholland, and Brett Accord, all not being classified at the end of the race. So that was a look top to bottom at the race results, and I think we are ready to begin our post-race coverage. Jim Felice standing by with Joey Tevin.
Yes, he is. Jim Felice, probably your most dominant win of the season. How'd you figure out Mugello so quickly compared to everybody else?
Yeah, I just got to probably credit my team on that one. I think we had a lot of good practice sessions this week, and Jason Finch in particular is just kind of a wizard on the telemetry, so he was able to help us find some time, a lot of different corners around there, and Yeah, it felt pretty good. It was great to bounce back after kind of a disastrous outing at Suzuka last week and end up top step of the podium. So, felt good.
Well, Jim, congrats. Win number 2 in the PRL for you. We'll see how the last 3 rounds of the season go.
Yeah, it's, number of races still to go. I think there's some other quick guys out there. Jeff Carollo had another strong finish tonight. Israel Osborne's always in the mix, always up in the top 5. So, just try to take it one race at a time and do my best each week.
Jim Feliz coming home with the win this week, but we're going to move down to P2 because for the first time, we get to talk to Mr. Joe Carnes. Joe, finally, at long last, your first podium in the PRL. How good does that feel?
Oh my God, I'm in shock.
I can only imagine, but you're in a Ferrari, you're in Italy. Was it only destiny? What added up to make this happen?
It was destiny. No, I got some really good coaching from my teammates over at PRE, and it showed.
Well, Joe, congrats on that first podium. Hopefully the first of many. We'll see you next week for more.
Most definitely. Thank you guys for putting on a great show.
Joe Carnes coming home P2, and last but not least, it's a very familiar name to the PRL. It's Mr. Rob Campbell coming home in 3rd today. It was a Porsche winning the race, a Porsche coming home in 3rd. Rob, do you think that was the car to have here in the high-speed corners of Mugello?
Honestly, I don't know. I didn't get a whole lot of time to practice. I just put in about 20 laps last night, and that was about it. So I'm not really sure who the OP car is this week, but Porsche seemed to work pretty good in certain sections, but Ferrari's got that straight line speed on us.
And it's only fitting that a Ferrari would be successful in Italy, but only 3 weeks left to go in the championship. You think you can pick up one more win before the end of the season?
Maybe I'm going to try. I was kind of behind the 8 ball to start with. I was away on vacation for week 1 and then had a disconnect at Charlotte. So for the most part, I'm just going to try to maximize what I can, try and get as many points for the team as I can this week. But I don't know if you noticed, we fixed up the front decal for you there, Joey. You'll have to take a look at sometime.
We didn't see it this week, but I look forward to seeing it next week, and I look forward to seeing you next week as well.
Talk to you later, guys.
Rob Campbell coming home in 3rd. What a happy podium, Arjuna. You got happy Jim Feliz winning for the first time. You got happy Joe Carnes on the podium for the first time. And you got Rob Campbell. He's always happy to be on the podium.
Yeah, I'm wondering how happy they're going to be when we go racing next time out, because I think it will be a bit more familiar stomping grounds, won't it? When we make our way over to the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Same time, same place, of course, for these drivers as they will kick off the proceedings of the GT3 double header. But as mentioned, not sure how the Audi is going to enjoy some of the curbs here. Of course, championship protagonists still have a couple of more races left to make their mark before we make our way to Mount Panorama at the end of the season to crown our champion. The only round of the championship, Joey, that cannot be dropped from the mix.
Can't drop the round. You can only drop off the side of the mountain. That's going to be very, very interesting. It's going to be interesting in the GT3 Fixed Series. We'll definitely have a championship battle there. But in the GT3 Sprint Series that's coming up, Arjuna, those guys are only separated by 1 point at the top of the championship. Who knows how close it's going to be there coming into Bathurst for a championship finale.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. Okayama, though, still left to come, of course, that penultimate round of the championship. I've never actually really seen too much GT3 racing there, at least on iRacing. Now, I know in the real world, Super GT does, of course, go there, so it's not like GT3 cars don't race there. It's a track, though, where, much like I think Mugello, passing is going to be at a premium. Basically, what we're saying is, Joey, you better be good at qualifying from here to the rest of the season.
And we have been there before in this series on Tuesday nights. I don't remember when it was. Last time I remember, we still had the Pro-Am split, so that must have been 2023, maybe Season 1 or Season 2. So we have been there in the recent past, and I think Okayama is a very underrated track for high-speed cars. I think we could definitely have a solid show there.
Should be fun, and hopefully you'll join us for all of that. 5 races in January, 4 races in February, all in our pursuit of crowning a champion. But now we return our attention back towards Mugello, where once again drivers are out for qualifying, but this time in the Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series. Again, 5 more minutes thrown onto the clock. The drivers given the ability to dial in their setups, and as Joey mentioned, championship looking very, very close at the top. They're all hoping to stand on that podium at the end of the 40-minute affair. Let's quickly talk you through how they're looking in terms of points. Same schedule, of course, for the drivers to work their way through, but after Dalton Zavadil's 210 point advantage has now been brought down, to 210-point lead has been brought down slightly, with drop rounds being factored into the mix. Just 1 point back to Vincent Trepanier. SimCity Racing have 2 barrels in the gun, if you will, with Chris Beats then back in 3rd, and the Seabow Racing team, Jimmy Lieber, Fernando Yaquez, positioned in 4th and 5th spots. Championship is still wide open at the end of the day in a field dominated by the Porsches.
Well, there was a big message in the GT3 Sprint Series Discord chat earlier today. Vincent Trepanier said there was a good chance he might miss tonight's race because he's going to be very busy after work. I haven't looked in the session. I don't know if he's here yet, but if Vincent has DNS this round, that's guaranteed to be his drop week with 0 points scored, so he couldn't afford a single bad week after this week if he doesn't in fact make it tonight.
That's, of course, one of the things that the drop week is meant to bring into the mix, to allow you to have those weeks where you can't race either voluntarily or not voluntarily if you get crashed out, as maybe some would like to put it. Close in the Drivers' Championship. It's pretty close still, ultimately in the Team Championship, even with SimCity Racing 1 having the 46-point advantage over SimCity Racing 2. They've just been more consistent, more relentless. 3 wins in that SimCity Racing 1 camp, with 6 top 5s to boot as well. Advanced Motorsports trying to hunt down SimCity Racing 2, but Trepanier's absence will be felt there as well.
Unless he does magically show up, that would be nice. I feel like that's happened before with Vincent saying it was going to be dicey, and then he actually showed up anyway, so we'll have to wait and see. If not, it will just be a SimCity Racing festival in the Teams Championship, which it looked like it might be at the start of the season. We had a SimCity Racing 1, 2, 3, 4 in race 1, if I'm remembering correctly. It's definitely been their season. They've come on with a full assault, and they may have to fight with each other. It might be a Civil War, SimCity, Civil something. Yeah, there's too many syllables there. I can't figure that one out, but it's going to happen.
At least from what I can tell, I don't see Vincent Trepanier out there in qualifying right now, although should still have the chance to get into the race as long as he jumps in before qualifying has officially seen its checkered flag fly. So that will probably be the determination as to whether Trepanier would be classified as part of the field or not. Maybe no surprise if we tell you qualifying underway. Dalton Zavadil currently fastest of them all, with Jimmy Lieber then second, Boris Ovando third, and Simon Terrio, Martin Crisp, and Chris Beats the rest of the top 6. They've got about 4 minutes left to work in the session or so. Only 18 cars here today for the GT3 Sprint Series, which is going to mean plenty of clean air for the drivers and even less of a difficult challenge to find traffic, because you can come in and take fresh tires and a fresh fuel load in this open setup series.
I hope you've got your Italian ready, because we're definitely going to be doing a lot of translation today. We're going to have many topics of conversation that might not necessarily be on track, but we'll still have a good race with only 18 cars. Last week at Suzuka, it was a little bit of a short field as well, and Vincent Trepanier and Jimmy Lieber were chasing each other all day long. So I think we'll definitely still have a good show here, even with a slightly shorter field.
So, what's the fastest lap time right now? 1:46.829 from Mr. Dalton Zavadil. Jimmy Lieber then 63 thousandths off. 1 second splits the top 10 or so. And you only need 2 to tango. And we should still, hopefully, get a pretty decent run from some of these contenders. The Seabow Racing team using a bit of draft in their respective pairing. Fernando Yaquez, I think, in front of Jimmy Lieber's number 74, who we're riding on board with now. You hear the patience on the throttle as they just work through this middle and final sector of the lap. It's down the hill where track falls away from you. Can't really tell how much elevation really plays its part from these onboards.
Hey, campus, we ride on board with Jimmy here. Look at those hands. They're going to be very, very smooth. We talked about this last week in that there's a very, very diverse group of drivers in the PRL. You've got drivers who are just sim racing as a hobby. You know, you got Vincent Trepanier, for example, is a bus driver in the daytime and a sim racing driver in the nighttime. Jimmy Lieber is a Porsche North America junior driver. He's a factory driver, and he's doing some sim racing on the side as well. We'll see if that does anything for him at the line with the draft of his teammate. It's still not going to be pole for him. He's got to stay behind the civilian Dalton Zavadil.
I think at this stage as well, 2 minutes to go, he will get this lap effectively, and that will be it to realistically improve, unless the tires are going to be able to hang on a little bit better than I would think. You can see the conditions, maybe not as balmy as you might sometimes worry about, but it's only the 1st of March virtually here at Circuit Mugello. So 91 Fahrenheit in the incorrect unit translates to, in terms of Celsius, about 33 degrees Celsius track temperature. So not the warmest, not the coldest, probably somewhere in the middle. Still, Fernando Yaquez giving the draft. And sometimes I wonder in sim racing how teammates decide to alternate it, right? In Formula One, they have race weekends where one weekend it's my turn, one weekend it's yours. I guess sometimes it helps if you get spat off into the gravel at Arrabbiata.
Yeah, that does help. I think I've just discovered something about Dalton Zavadil, by the way. I was looking at the other screen. I was a little bit distracted while you were talking there. Apparently, he's a big fan of the red-eyed crocodile skink, and I think that's the reason he's on pole right now. I think he's getting a little bit skinky. He's getting some good luck there.
Well, Jimmy Libra has now backed off so heavily to release one car on through. That's the 22 machine of Boris Ovando, and immediately back behind Fernando Yaquez. So clearly thinks that it's important enough for him to sit behind, and maybe helps to slightly answer that question. We'll have to see if we can ask Mr. Z what is the secret of his success, especially in these qualifying sessions this season.
It's that red-eyed crocodile skink mentality. He's got skink blood.
Because it has been pretty impressive as to how it's already been 2 pole positions this season in 5 previous races. He could notch up another one as checkered flag is about to fly, and 3 cars, 2nd, 3rd, and 7th positions back towards the line. There's the SimCity Racing pair, Dalton Zavadil behind Martin Crisp.
And it's a shorter effort for SimCity Racing today. Zavadil's here, Crisp is here, Beats is here, Allen is here. No Brandon Tabone, unfortunately, and I think I'm forgetting about one other driver who I should really remember right now. I don't have him in my head right now, but they've got the most important guy here, Dalton Zavadil, championship leader, on pole right now. Actually extended his pole position on that last lap, pulled another 10th over Jimmy Ibra. He doesn't even need to be on track right now, but he wants to go even faster and extend that pole even further if he can.
Martin Crisp pulled out of the way, so didn't want to get in between a potential chance for Dalton Zavadil to improve. Chris Beats has headed down to pit lane and followed in Simon Terrio, so some drivers electing not to try and improve on the final attempts with the checkered flag. Now flying in the session, that's Sammy Hendricks following Kwok Nin into the box, so 2 more drivers calling it session done and dusted. So Dalton Zavadil will be next, and then of course still a chance for Jimmy Libra or Boris Ovando, Fernando Yaquez, one of those 3 to try and improve, to try and best away pole position from the SimCity Racing camp. One more chance for Zavadil to improve, crosses the timing beam, trying to search for a 46.754. It's 2/10 off, and now the focus will be on those behind. Already Jimmy Libra has taken the trip back to pit lane, and the rest following him in.
Yeah, Fernando Yaquez tried to be useful, tried to give the draft to his teammate and get him up on pole, but didn't quite work out his way. Now we have to see, how does the start go? Does it go any different than the fixed races start, where the pole sitter Jim Feliz got an excellent start, ran away from the field after that? Maybe Jimmy Ibra can stick that little bit closer to Zavadil, Boris Ovando even as well, and save a little bit of fuel in line, and potentially actually think about some pit strategy instead of losing the leader on lap 1.
We'll get another full formation lap this time, won't we, Joey?
Yay!
So I will have to read through the grid as
very slowly
as
you're gonna have to go with the speed of the red-eyed crocodile skink.
See, but crocodiles are deceptively fast.
But the crocodile skink is a very little guy, so
yeah,
I don't think they can go very fast.
That doesn't mean they won't snap at you very quickly.
If Dalton Zavadil wins this race, or even if he's on the podium at all...
Oh, we're asking him.
Yeah, the only thing I'm asking is about the red-eyed crocodile skink.
Yeah, no, he better be ready for the questions that are coming his way. They're not about the race. They're not about the team, the sponsors. No.
It's not Mr. Z anymore. He's Mr. Skink.
There you go. Session officially in the books. No improvement in the dying stages, which is maybe a bit of a surprise in this sprint series where you can come in, get a fresh tank of fuel, and top off, of course, with some fresh tires as well, to go out there for one final attempt in the closing stages and just try and really put the pressure on. We mentioned the full formation lap, plenty of time to talk through how they'll line up, but we've already mentioned it. It's once again SimCity Racing on top in qualifying for the third time this season. Dalton Zavada will lead us to the green. He'll be alongside the Seabao Racing driver Jimmy Lieber, with Boris Ovando and then Simon Terrio behind on row 2. Martin Chris sits alongside Chris Beats in the pair of SimCity Racing machines, a 5th and 6th positions respectively, with Yaquez alongside of Allen and then Simpson alongside Mendoza to round out your top 10.
You're going too fast, Arjuna. Slow it down. We're already halfway through.
No, because I want to go now look in the webcams. That's more interesting, I've decided.
Okay.
Sammy Hendricks, Jeremy Littleton, their 11th and 12th positions, and then Miguel Fonseca, Marc-Andre Deschardin, Carlos Ocono, Ethan Bass, Kwoknin, and then Dimitri Sosno. 18 cars, that's all we've got lined and loaded, but there should be plenty of fighting. I've just gone and looked and realized that maybe my optimism, my haste was misplaced, but Martin Crisp has given us a very, very interesting perspective.
Martin Crisp on Twitch. We love to see it. He's got the viewers out. I can't read what's in his chat. I should hopefully be able to. I'm going to look it up on the other screen, and I'm going to give his chat members a shout out. But where's the rest of our usual suspects? Where's Quack? Where's anybody else?
Oh, the best is just left. There was something about a setup book that Martin Crisp apparently had written and something, or I don't know. But yeah, we can go and probably at some point interrupt his chat. We get a look at the foot cam as well. So, you know, Paul Tracy, eat your heart out.
Love it.
What more could you ask for?
Twitch.tv/Martin Crisp. He's got Tilly Neuve. He's got Hatton Bald. And those are seemingly the only 2 viewers right now. But he's got 5 viewers over there. That's big stuff. And all of you watching over on the Martin Crisp channel, if you can hear me through there, if you got 2 monitors, Race Spot on one screen, Martin Crisp on one screen. That's the optimal experience.
Full formation lap as mentioned, so drivers get time to build some temperature and pressure into the tires. 40 minutes of racing for them with which to work, and, well, so a bit of a chaotic start in some ways in the GT3 Fix Series race. Ultimately, though, it wasn't too bad. I'm thinking with the 18 cars that we've got today, for this one, we should be good. Vincent Trepanese jumped into chat, by the way, to say, let's go. He's cheering for his teammate Simon and hoping that Terrio can jump his way up to a podium spot.
Vincent's just been working too hard. Maybe he took the longer
those buses too much.
Yeah, he took the longer bus route today and couldn't make it tonight. That's very unfortunate, but we'll see Vincent back next week. We'll see him hopefully return to his winning ways, because he's actually got a big task, Arjuna. He's been in a PRL season-long battle with GT4's Justin Ream. They've been hopping up the win ladders together. They're currently tied 8th all time, but with Vincent Trepanier missing this week, he might let Justin Ream pass him. That's not good.
Not acceptable. Vincent, priorities. You got to come and drive your bus in the sim.
Exactly. If you're going to catch Sean Campbell, you can't be missing these weeks to Justin Ream. You can't let him get there first.
Have we officially decided that Sean Campbell's not allowed to win another race in the Precision Racing League?
I mean, if he ever comes back, I think for the coming weeks, I'm going to force us to build a top 10 graphic for the chase, because if anybody at home isn't familiar with the Precision Racing League statistics, you can access them on the forums. You can see every win ever in the PRL. Bradley Holly's number 1. He's got 119 wins. He's still got almost 50 wins over anybody else. Richard Regan Jr. second with 71. Abner Acosta third. David Holland fourth. Carl Modoff fifth. And then everybody's very, very close. You got Trent Dinkle on 27. Sean Campbell on 24. Greg Seitz, Justin Ream, Vincent Trepanier on 21. That's a lot of numbers. It's all very close. It's all very exciting.
Yeah, that's stats that Joey keeps up to date and very useful as well, given how much is going on. Although, as someone made the claim, Joey, that your stats aren't representative of the entirety of the PRL's history.
Well, that's because there were like Project Cars leagues that happened on consoles before the PRL actually existed, and some of the old forums.
Excuses.
We don't count those. Those are archaic statistics that we don't count. There are some missing seasons though, so if anybody comes out of the woodwork one of these days with the season 11 or 2020 season 1 GT3 championships, or the season 2 Wednesday series NASCAR series, I'll take those statistics any day of the week so we can actually add them into the archives.
See? Incomplete data. Hashtag
the
blame
Pro
Joey.
Mazda in Season 9 on Thursdays, they're forgotten forever. Somebody didn't archive their Excel spreadsheets correctly.
Hashtag blame Joey.
I'm going to get the Library of Congress on this. I bet they could
Do
take
they
a
not exist on iRacing leagues somewhere?
Now that you mention that, I might have to go that way. We could get full PRL statistics before the end of the season.
Just saying, it should be somewhere. My brain is going off. Data collection, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, pace car off and away, and it's basically a field of Porsches for the most part. An angry field at the front that's ready to fight. Dalton Zabidal, Jimmy Lieber front row, Boris Ovando, Simon Terrio behind them on row 2. Here we go to the line. Green flag out, and instantly 7 cars in a conga line on the express line to turn number 1. SimCity Racing are going to fan out in and amongst themselves. That looked like Jason Allen and Chris Beats side by side in the purple and the green momentarily, but up front Zabidal leads. Lieber holds on to second. Boris Ovando, Martin Chris fight for third and fourth as Simon Terrio drops down a position and tries to hold on to some running order at the start of this race. Back through the right, all 18 cars pointed in the right direction.
And look at Mr. Crisp still trying to fight it to the inside now of Boris Ovando. Is he going to be able to take third? I think he was able to clear Ovando through the first part of the corner, but through the second part of the corner, they're still side by side. Crisp and Ovando losing those front two as they're still trying to resolve this third place battle coming down the hill.
It's great, but it's the danger of fighting is you lose a lot of time. Zabidal and Lieber with big smiles on their faces as finally Ovando holds on to third. Chris tucks back in as over the right at the crest they will climb. And then down into the braking zone. Who is going to be the last of the late breakers? Because Simon Terry was quite close to the back of Martin Chris. Not close enough to have a look. Ovando out a little bit wide, but not losing too much ground. It's 1.5 seconds the margin between the top 2 and the chasing pack.
A little bit of side-by-side back in 16th between the Bassmaster and Okano. Side-by-side for P5. Chris Beats is trying to take advantage of an ailing Simon Terrio. Terrio bounces over the curbs. Beats gets the momentum, and through the chicane at Biandetti, he's got the momentum, and Beats is up into the top 5 with his teammate Martin Crisp.
Down the inside, no, not this time by. Terrio's gone from 4th to 6th on the start of this race. Not ideal for him by any means. Looks like Littleton with a big sense force. Simpson out wide. Hendricks will take advantage and take his Audi on through to 11th position at the line. 7 tenths between your leaders, 1.5 seconds then behind. And trains of cars through the rest of the field, working up to the opening corner. Chris Beats goes defensive. Terrio forced the long way around. If you're brave, you're confident. It converts back to the inside, but it's a lot to ask, a lot to try and get through. Chris Beats gets turned on the nose of Terrio, and I don't know if he ended up in the wall.
That is one way to make the overtake there, but definitely not the way that I think either Terrio or Beats wanted that to happen. I think Chris is okay. I don't see any damage on that 33 car, but that was just barely a nose to a bumper. Terrio not entirely clear, or Beats rather not entirely clear. Terrio maybe trying to brave it a little bit too much. We'll wait and see a replay from the helicopter perspective, but that was a little bit of an argument between two cars who didn't want to give up.
And ultimately, once you start to stick together, it's very difficult to untangle yourself in these GT3 machines with the way the damage model works. Boris Ovando's cleared himself from Martin Crisp in the 957 SimCity Racing entry that now runs 4th. Ovando trying to work to try and bridge the gap to your 2 leading contenders. Now, if Jimmy Lieber is allowed to run behind Dalton Zabidal as he's sitting right now, he's in a great spot. To Joey, just ride in the draft, save some fuel, and make something happen in the pit stop.
He's going to have to push to do that, though. He can't just ride on pace, because Dalton Zabidal was faster than him in qualifying by about 2 tenths of a second. He looks to be faster than him in race pace, so Jimmy's actually got to be pushing here to stay in touch with Zabidal. He can lift off a little bit on the front straight, maybe, if he's a little bit closer, but right now, about 6 tenths back, that's almost the limit of draft range for him to be able to save a little bit. He needs to be pushing here if he wants to stick with Zabidal and not totally lose him and let him run away with the lead.
In this open setup series, you have the chance to try and make your car a bit more of a weapon in a straight line. Don't know if necessarily anyone's going to be able to do so. Porsches at the front, 8 of them running in the top 8 positions right now, find themselves relatively equal in terms of top-end speed at the end of the straight, and so Simon Terrio just trying to now work on the bumper of Martin Chris, unsettles the 957 by showing himself in the mirror, but backs out of it as back through one of the chicane they will ride into the middle sector of the lap, as now Boris Ovando 2.5 seconds clear of Martin Crisp.
I've been doing a little bit of stream sniping. I've still been watching Martin Crisp stream, and we've got some breaking news in his chat, actually. Vincent Trepanier has posted his news in Martin's chat instead of the Race Spot chat. He says he's missing the final round because he's going to be on vacation in Florida. So, Dalton Zavadil, put one more hand on the trophy. You're not going to have Vincent Trepanier fighting that with you in the last round.
Trying to figure out, is there anything particular happening in Florida that weekend, or is Vincent just going to enjoy the Sunshine State and roller coasters?
I think it's probably just the latter.
Okay.
Maybe it's not a busy week for the bus schedule and he can afford to take it off. Oh, look at Fernando Jaquez trying to make it work around the outside.
Simon Terrio just backed out down through the right-hander, and the Seabow Racing Team car tried to take advantage. It's not Daytona 500 weekend, that's what I was thinking. It won't be Sebring
No,
weekend.
that's only in 2 weeks.
So he's not going for race cars is the problem.
I'm sure he'll find something to do. He'll find a nice bus to ride on,
race cars.
Or he'll find a monorail to ride on. I imagine that's probably a popular choice.
Ooh, yes, not a bad idea. And again, if Vincent wants to go ride some roller coasters and feel like a bus driver, I'm sure there is a roller coaster for you somewhere in and amongst everything there. Terrio half looks at the inside, doesn't go for it once again though. This is really now building behind Chris, because you've got not just Terrio, Jaquez, Mendoza, Allen, Littleton, Hendrick, Simpson, Desjardins, Acano, Bass, Fonseca, and even popped in Dimitri Sosno and Chris Beats really find themselves in the line behind the SimCity Racing car.
And if you were Martin Crisp right now, if you were, a normal human and not Martin, you'd probably be feeling a little bit of pressure right now. You'd be feeling very, very anxious, and now you're feeling extra anxious because Simon Terrio's getting to the inside, but Crisp knows he's going to have the inside to the next quarter. He's going to be able to hang on, and I guarantee you, if you look at this guy's face right now, his expression hasn't changed a bit. He's used to this pressure, and he's loving holding off Simon Terrio right now.
Yeah, he's loving life. I think this is the type of battling that we would want to see, even with the smaller field, to show that you only need a couple of cars to put up great fighting. Jaquez has been quite patient and not really forced too much with Simon Terrio, to be fair to him. At some point that will start to change, and the 26 Seabow Racing car will start to just take advantage of the half doors that are being left open. Simon Terrio is also going to probably get to a point where he's running over the bumper of Martin Crisp, down out of that right-hand hairpin. Almost looked like he wanted to get to the inside.
Well, look at David Mendonça in fourth in line in this train, keeping pace with these guys. David was an AM driver back in the day when this series was split by Pro and AM, and now he's fighting with those same pros that he was being passed by back in the day in a whole different class. He has improved so much in the last year, and he's been legitimately fighting with these pros all season long.
Yeah, and the Pro-Am split was cool, but it's also been cool, like you say, to see drivers take that step forward and just use the confidence they built to be able to make some moves. Terrio will go to the outside, hoping not for a repeat of Chris Beats banging off the nose, but tucks back in. 32 minutes still left on the clock. And so with that said, let's go back and take a look at exactly how Chris Beats came unstuck here.
Yeah, just a little bit of overlap there, almost a little bit like a NASCAR accident on the exit of a corner, with Chris Beats not being entirely clear, and Terrio maybe just keeping his nose in a hole that wasn't quite there. That smells like two things that add up to a racing incident to me, unfortunately. There was just a little bit of overlap, and it all went wrong. Although Terrio did come over a little bit further to the right, I don't know if he necessarily needed to be as sharp as he was trying to be. He was trying to get in line, and it didn't work out for him. Well, it worked out for him. It didn't work out for Chris Beats.
There was a moment on the timing screen where Jimmy Lieber had disappeared. Don't fret, he still sits there in second as Boris Ovando works hard to try and close the margin down. But, I mean, there is pressure being built up at the front here. Behind Martin Chris, Dalton Zavadil now the one having those brief technical issues. Don't panic too much, hopefully. There's nothing too stressful going wrong for the drivers in the lead battle.
I mean, that was probably the happiest 5 seconds of Jimmy Lieber's race. He was hoping, please, we've had some internet issues this season for some other drivers. Could this finally be the day where it does good for me? He's not quite so lucky this time, although Dalton's got another blink going now. Oh dear, it's starting to look worse.
This one's a bad one, isn't it?
Not Mr. Z, no.
Don't do this to us.
The red-eyed crocodile skinks are crying across the world.
He's dropped down to 17th, but he hasn't left the session just yet. No, right on cue. Dalton Zavadil has been escorted from the session by the internet
Control
gods.
Z.
Jimmy Lieber will have the lead by 3 seconds, and now Martin Chris sits in a podium spot. And, well, I don't mean to make this, to phrase this the wrong way. The championship has just come alive. Simon Theriault to the inside of Martin Crisp, and here they go in towards the middle sector, and watch for Yaquez, 3 wide in towards the downhill right-hander. Yaquez with the best line of them all. Theriault allowed to run off the track and hold on to his position.
Maybe the overtake of the season if Fernando Jaquez can figure this out. He's got the inside on Theriault, and he's through 3 wide at Mugello. Who knew that was possible? Fernando Jaquez is up on the podium.
Wow, I mean, take a picture of that one because it won't happen often, Mr. Hedge. Oh, that's on social media and being clipped for years to come.
That is incredible stuff, and that means that CRT now, they could be going for their first win in the GT3 Sprint Series with Jimmy Lieber up front, and they could get 2 cars on the podium with Fernando Jaquez as well. This could be a big day for them.
Big day as well then in championships. We mentioned that Dalton Zavadil's issue is going to slightly shake up how the drop points have been factored in and been calculated, even with Vincent Trepanier missing the season finale. With the likes of this result for Jimmy Lieber maybe bringing him back even closer into the mix. Who knows? 30 minutes then left for us to try and figure this one out. Let's see if Fernando Yaquez can pull away. Martin Crisp is not being dropped by any means as back towards turn 1 will go. Theriault has attacked the outside a number of times. We'll try and look to the inside and commits under the brakes. That was confident from Theriault. He will have the opportunity to now run the Seabao Racing car out of room, but outside becomes inside, becomes outside once again. Contact on corner exit. Can Martin Crisp slide through 3 wide this time?
He's going to certainly think about it. Theriault has been using the bumpers on that Porsche as much as he possibly can. He is now clear, but Martin Crisp still has to try and take advantage of Jaquez. He gets squeezed on the apex, and that's going to allow Mr. David Mendonça to take up 1 more spot, and Martin is going to be able to stay in P5. No advancement for him just yet.
See that the likes of Littleton, Hendricks, Simpson behind, still relatively close too. So as much as the top 2 cars are now clear from the field, behind 3rd position, there is so much excitement that's just continuing to run. And much like we were talking about when it came to those in the fixed series, if you're in a long train like this, at some point you're going to be thinking, right, get me out of it, get me down to pit lane, although it's probably still a little bit too early for that as we ride with Hendricks in the 144.
Lifting off very, very early there, coming into Corintaio. He's definitely saving a little bit of fuel. And by the way, you mentioned championship possibilities. Dalton Zavadil's still going to be okay. He's actually just rejoined the session now, I think. I think he's going to be getting back out on track. He can drop this week because he's had a pretty good season so far. Vincent Trepanier missing the last round. He can't drop that week, so everything is still going Dalton Zavadil's way. It's just a little bit of a hit. He can't afford to have 1 more bad week.
Yeah, I don't think we're necessarily thinking about Vincent as part of the championship mix. It's more going to be about the likes of Jimmy up front and taking advantage of this win and converting it. But for Dalton Zavadil, just 1 lap down with that brief technical blip, so ultimately could have been a whole lot worse. Into the braking zone of turn 1. The different lines being taken from drivers, but no real preference as to which one is the faster option. Martin Crisp now will have to wait and see if after both Yaquez and Theriault have gotten on through, David Mendonça next up in the line can slide his way forward with clinical ease as well in the Precision Racing Esports colors.
It's right on board with David. A beautiful helmet, I might add. Nice highlighter yellow. Flashing the wipers at us for that matter. A sign of things to come. Who knows how soon, but even sooner than it was once before.
Yeah, hopefully not anytime soon though, because dry races can still be plenty dramatic, as I think we're going to find out over the rest of this one. Still Crisp yet to be dropped by those in front, although gap is starting to rise. I think Simon Theriault and Fernando Yaquez are going to really spoil us in their own fight for 3rd now.
Let's just pretend that's the fight for the win. Let's cover up Jimmy Lieber and Boris Ovando on the top of the ticker, and let's just pretend that's the fight of the win for the rest of the race.
We could always tell lead driver Stuart Arnaud Genet to just disqualify Lieber and Ovando.
We could, but he was also a lazy little boy, and he's not here tonight either.
Which is why we'll ask him to do it. We'll say, because you were so lazy, you could do us a favor.
Where's J.R. Williams when you need him? Come on, J.R., come out here. You had a reasonable night last night. You can afford to disqualify some people tonight.
Yeah, poor Arnaud as well, to be clear. He does race often in the Sprint Series races, but if he's involved in incidents, he's not the one that's making any judgment on them. Don't worry, independent stewards would come in and take over the involvement in that situation. And as ever, there's usually a decent amount of consternation post-race in these GT3 class races that we have. Still, Martin Crisp holds steady to the top two. I'm going to go with it. Top two, Simon Terrio, Fernando Yaquez. How much longer can he hold on, though? He's looking pretty steady.
Yeah, very, very steady. He's as experienced as anybody else in this series. He lists his job as retired old man, which is a little bit scary for the rest of the field, because this is just what he does. He's a sim racer. He spends a lot of his time practicing and making sure he's as quick and consistent and good as humanly possible. When you've got some maybe younger drivers behind him who maybe have day jobs or school they have to focus on in the week, Martin Crisp can worry about sim racing and dunk on all those punk kids.
Yeah, it makes me jealous of the ability to just do whatever you want. Adult life's not all it's promised to be. I will be completely honest in saying that. And that's Kwok Min, though, who I think in that Audi might be done for the day.
Let's see, what even happened? It was all good through turn 1, and then I think very quickly it's going to become ungood through turn 2 and 3. He saved it, and then he didn't save it, and then he saved it, and then he didn't save it, and it ended in some not very soft tires. But I think he'll get back out there. He's getting repairs done right now. He's towing back to the pits, but you do have to finish 50% of the laps in the Precision Racing League if you want to get points for the race. So I think we will see Kwok get out there at least for a couple laps so he can get points for this race and not have it as a DNF.
Now starting to open up, not just between Crisp and those in front of him, but I think Jeremy Littleton maybe made a small mistake and now comes down to pit lane with Simpson, Hendricks, and Deschardin electing to stay out there and continue their run. So we've had about 15 minutes of the race complete. First taker down onto pit lane for what would be a strategy-induced pit stop. And now we'll see how it plays out for them. Martin Crisp, though, as mentioned, is starting to lose track of Yaquez and Terrio as the two of them break away just up the road.
And if I'm not mistaken, David Mendonca's win in the AM class, or at least his last win in the AM class in this series, I think it came at Okayama. So if we're going there in 2 weeks' time, he might be returning to a very, very happy hunting ground for him. Maybe we could see him fighting for the podium with the pros then in 2 weeks' time. But I'm going to check those statistics. I'm going to see if that's actually true.
I have a joke that I hope I will remember when we get to the Okayama round. It's so good, I'm going to save it for that. Oh, not so good for Ethan Bass, though. The Fords had a slip-up.
The Bassmaster, Bass Ackwards, not good for him. He had an interesting lap 1. I think he made up a spot, which was pretty good. It's a new track. It's an old car. I don't think that's a great combo. And poor old Bassmaster, well done for the longest slide of anybody. I don't know how he was able to keep up that slide for so long. That was a couple hundred feet.
His tires will be screaming out in agony now, that is for sure. And he may be one of the next drivers to come down to the pit lane. Still no takers inside of the top 5, at least for the time being, as Jason Allen gets closer and closer now to the back of the Precision Racing esports machine of David Mendoza. Not really closing at the top of the rev range, as in 6th gear are just rising. The flat 6 Porsche Scream wails out down through a couple of gears in through turn 1. Patient on the throttle, just rolling onto it up to 3rd gear. And now, here again, the patience is tire management in races like these so important.
If you want to know about the office politics of SimCity Racing, Jason Allen, rather, he's the owner of the team technically. Chris Beats is the team principal of the team. So Jason maybe has a little bit more power over what the team does, but he's the founder. He was racing at the Las Vegas Bull Ring. He's got some real life experience, and he was really involved in starting this team, bringing it to iRacing, getting them all their success that they have now. And I do wonder if he holds that over his teammates in the meetings as the owner of the team. Can he say, "Hey, you know what, guys? If I'm battling with you on track, can I get a little bit of help, maybe?"
Now, are we going to hold this over Vincent Trepanier, by the way, that he's missing tonight?
Maybe.
He just said in the YouTube chat that he's very sorry.
Well, you know what? If he says he's sorry, but if I see one photo from Florida, Vincent, if I see you with the Mickey ears and the giant churro, I'm going to be mad again.
No, we want to see all those photos.
We do want to see those, but we want to see you on track as well.
Only after our season finale has been finished. I think that.
And I want to see him in a bus. I want to find what city Vincent Trepanier is doing the bus route in, and I want to ride on his line.
Yeah. No, Vincent, of course, has been part of our championship fights in years past as well, so probably going to have another crack at a championship at some point, we have to say, in 2024. Chris Beats is now the latest driver to come down to pit lane, so his green SimCity Racing car will join Jeremy Littleton in being the second car to make a scheduled pit stop.
Yeah, it's been very unpopular to come down pit lane today. It's not been very hip, but you do have to do it eventually. It's a requirement by the laws of physics. You don't have enough fuel to make it to the end of one of these races with no pit stop, especially with how much fuel you're expending around this track. But look at that. That was a good exit from David Mendonça. Couldn't do anything with it, though. You need a far better exit than that. You need to be fully side by side before you start coming down the hill there, if you even want to think about an overtake. If you're a 10th back or so, it's just not enough in terms of a braking zone to actually think about a move. You need to be fully alongside.
Probably entering the window as well for pit stops to begin through the field with such a small spread of cars. There's plenty of clean air to drop into, so you'd assume that drivers not necessarily too concerned about traffic. Expect drivers to be in no later than probably 10 minutes from now. So pit stop window has officially opened, and Kwoknin, our only retiree, Dalton Zavadil back out there, might actually have enough fuel to get him to the end of the race. We'll keep an eye on that and figure it out. In through the final corner, two different lines from Martin Crispin, from David Mendoza, one that's going to see the Pacific Racing Esports car swing out wide down through the final corner. Don't know if it's going to be enough for him to get close. These three Porsches running 5th, 6th, and 7th, looking very, very equally matched in a straight line.
My research is complete, Arjuna. Last win for David Mendonça was in the AM class at Okayama in 2023 Season 1 in this series. So he will, in fact, be returning to what is probably his favorite track in the world now.
I mean, we'll have to ask him to confirm, but I don't know how many people actually like Okayama as their favorite track. It's got its fans, don't get me wrong.
It's pretty good. I think he has actually won a race since then. There was kind of a trial series that they did with
so you lied.
I just thought the Formula Ford, or the F1600, whatever we want to call it. I think he technically won a race in that, but that was unbroadcasted. He got his full glory when we were broadcasting Okayama with him winning in the AM class.
So just because it wasn't broadcast means it didn't happen, right?
Yes,
okay.
It means it was less glorious.
Well, so technically his last win was in a Formula Ford, not in a GT3 car, unfortunately.
Yes, but I think there were about 6 cars in the field.
Yeah, but
I don't think there were that many more in the AM class when he was running either, but
yeah.
a win is a win. It doesn't matter how many cars were there. You still won over him.
No, I think we will look at it as, it's not his most recent win, but it's the one that maybe he will think about with the most fondness. Miguel Fonseca will be thinking of fondness of getting out of this race. He apparently was not feeling sharing a message with us, as he usually does on a Zoom webcam, by the way.
He's not sharing us a camera at all. What a shame.
Oh, and now
that's part of my weekly diet.
Something's happened to Ethan Bass because he's come down pit lane and now taken a tow back to pit lane.
Oh dear, I'm stuck in a state of limerence with Miguel Fonseca. If I don't see him, I just get depressed, and he's going to be depressed about that as well. A nice little spin, gets it looped back around. He's been a NASCAR driver this season, though, so I think he's going to be thinking more about Wednesday nights when he's been very successful. He's already got a win. And what in the world did Ethan Bass do in the exit of pit lane?
So he pulls to the end of the pit lane, stops, and then returns to the pit box.
I don't know. Did his pedals go out? Did he have to go to the bathroom? Who knows?
Well, all is right in the world of the Ford, which is to say that it's time to burn it and to get a new Ford into iRacing.
Arjuna's wrong, everybody.
No.
Take your remotes out. Mute him. Leave my channels on. Ford is good.
You were not at Daytona to see the Ford in person.
I like the new Ford as well, but we don't have that yet. So for as long as we don't have the new Ford,
that's what I'm saying.
I will enjoy the old Ford.
Burn this Ford, get the new Ford. The new Ford does not sound great, though. I'm just going to say that right now. If you're expecting a glorious sounding Mustang, it's not bad sounding, but don't get your hopes up.
Arjuna's just holding this over my head because he was actually there in person, and I was in a windowless edit room in the white hallways of NASCAR Productions. I should have been there instead. I should have gone down. I should have been in the grandstands.
It was nice. To be fair, the best place to listen to the cars isn't actually the main grandstands at Daytona. A great place to go listen to them, though, just inside of turn number 6, right before they're onto the banking. You know, you hear them downshift the LMP2 cars. It's like genuinely, it's like gunfire going off. It's so violent the way they, it's not even the downshift necessarily, it's the way they're off throttle into the braking zone and then on the power. Which GTP do you think sounds the best, Joey, in my opinion?
In my opinion? Or in your opinion? Or in my opinion?
Which do you think, do I think sounds the best? Yes, I know.
Which do you think sounds best? I think you think the Cadillac sounds best.
No.
Porsche.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, good. I didn't have to go through all 4.
No. The Porsche has, especially out of turn 6, a really cool sound to it. You know which sounds the worst? There's only 2 other. BMW.
No, wrong one.
Yeah. BMW just doesn't sound great. It looks great.
Well, we'll have a Lamborghini and an Alpine before too long.
Yeah, I was disappointed that we didn't get to see the Lamborghini and that it's only going to start at Sebring. Which, I mean, if you're going to debut a car at a race, I can appreciate not wanting to do it at Daytona for the first time, especially when all the other cars have a year of development on you. But by going to Sebring, you're basically acknowledging that my car's probably going to break down during this race. Please don't judge us.
I just did some research, by the way, Arjuna.
Did you judge?
Vincent Trepanier is a driver in Gatineau in Quebec. So I might have to go over there. I might have to get down to Gatineau if I want to ride on his bus.
It sounds like Joey's got his summer plans figured out now.
How big is Gatineau that they have a bus system?
How many different bus routes would you potentially have to ride to ride with the Vincent Trepanier? It's a good question that we'll have to answer. We are now down to 12 and a half odd minutes to go. David Mendoza pinning and only stopped for 7.7 seconds, so it's a pretty blistery stop for him in terms of in and out as quick and efficient as possible. It's very much opened up between the rest of the drivers through the field. Simon Terrio, Fernando Yaquez still only about 0.7 of a second splitting them in their fight for the final step of the podium.
I've got sad news. There's 345 buses in the fleet of the Utuai region of Quebec that Vincent Trepanier drives for. I'm gonna be waiting for some buses to come by for a while, I think.
Just have to coordinate it, I would guess. Brake lights flash momentarily for Terrio as down through the left, just trying to arrest the momentum off the limiter in 4th gear for a moment there for Yaquez, not allowing himself to roll out too far wide. A little bit of a sideways snap as he clambers over the inside curb in the Seabow Racing number 26. And as you mentioned, Joey, trying to make it a Seabow Racing double podium here today.
He's trying to do that, but Simon Terrio is still trying to hold up the glory of Advanced Motorsports as a single car here. If he wants to keep their team's championship hopes alive, even at all, he needs to stay where he is, because he's actually got a somewhat decent opportunity to do that. Martin Crisp is behind him in 5th. He is on SimCity Racing 2, if I'm not mistaken, which is the 2nd squad in the team's championship. Jason Allen, I think, is also on 2. Dalton Zavadil down the order. Chris Beats down the order. This might not actually be that bad of a day for Advanced Motorsports, even with only having 1 car in the field.
Simon Terrio comes down to pit lane. Jimmy Lieber and Boris Ovando have done so as well. There you see the cars hidden behind the pit wall. Ovando slides into his markers behind your race leader, who's already revving the engine, and 9.7 seconds stationary. Wasn't necessarily concerned about the time to those behind. Neither will Boris Ovando be by any real marker. Simon Theriault with a lengthy stop, 10.2 seconds, and that's almost guaranteeing, you'd have to feel, Joey, that Fernando Yaquez will get the leapfrog in the stop.
Depends what happens with the pit stop time, though. Theriault's finally out. He's finally safe. But that's actually not that different than Yebra and Ovando. It's very different to Mendonça, though. He's actually made up a little bit of time in that pit stop. I think he's the one I'm worried about actually making to the end of the race. Mendonça was only in the box for 7.7 seconds.
Yeah, that 7.7 seconds definitely a little bit too short at that time of the race, I thought, but it'll all come down to how many laps we end up doing relative to the clock, and we'll only know once we dive a little bit deeper into this one. So Yaquez, Crisp, Allen, Simpson, Desjardins, 5 cars yet to come down pit lane, and with the track getting a bit darker, we did think as well that we'd see all the cars in fuel-wise probably in before the end of this lap. Fernando Yaquez still has got the final hairpin with which to navigate before we'll see him potentially make his trip down towards the lane, but if he's been sitting and saving fuel, 1 lap longer in this stint of the race will translate to a slightly shorter pit stop time as he exits driver's right down to the box.
You know what pit stop is in Italian, Arjuna?
Pit stop.
Exactly. Pit stop.
Oh, you have to say it with the right inflection, though.
Pit stop.
So, Yaquez trying to get a double podium on the cards for the iRacing team. Where is Simon Theriault? Already through that chicane at the end of the lap, and now down through that long left-hander. The track falls away from you and then grips back up as you get onto the power and roll your way through. Yaquez 9 seconds stationary, 1.2 seconds quicker in the box, and therefore is going to be at the line to release himself from the limiter just in the nick of time. He'll have the inside momentum if he wants to defend into the braking zone of turn number 1. Theriault with some more confidence, his tires up to temperature and pressure as well, but Fernando Yaquez the audacity to make a shorter pit stop and hold on to the 3rd spot on the podium.
He's got it done, but once again, he's got to hold off the total pressure from Simon Theriault behind him. 1 bobble, 1 mistake, and Simon is going to be right there waiting to pounce and waiting to get by him. And we know Simon's been aggressive as well. He's not been afraid to bang the bumpers off of that Porsche. If he gets side by side with you, he's going for the move.
Still have, I think, what will be 5 laps to go, including this one. So plenty of chance to fight, plenty of chance to mix things up in and amongst them. Same thing can be said for the 3 cars fighting for 9th position. Littleton in front of Beats and Desjardins as the recovery drive continues, and Chris Beats in that 33. Jinx down low to the inside. Not going to be giving it easy by any means. The Ferrari forces him to slot back into line. Chris Beats has still got a top 10 recovery drive though on the cards.
The lone Ferrari in the field for Jeremy Littleton. So he's got to hold up a little bit of glory here. We did have Christian Challoner in his Ferrari earlier this season. Haven't seen him in the past couple weeks, unfortunately. So Jeremy's just holding up the flag here. And it does look a little bit like that Ferrari is a little bit wider than the Porsche from some angles. That may just be an illusion, but he's making it very wide spiritually and physically on the track.
Yeah. We talked briefly about conditions slightly earlier on. Let's talk about them again. Just to note that it's slightly dropped off in terms of peak track temperature, and so grip shouldn't necessarily be at a premium, but drivers at this stage will probably be nursing whatever tires they still have underneath them in the limited running remaining. There's Boris Ovando second. He's only about 3.5 seconds off of your race leader, who's sailing off and away. Familiar with Porsches, yes, but maybe not familiar with this particular one in the real world. Jimmy Lieber has become very comfortable with it in the iRacing car in this Precision Racing League GT3 Sprint Series, and just look at him carve it down through this middle sector.
And Jimmy was the 2022 Porsche Sprint Challenge North America champion. Got himself a factory junior drive with Porsche North America. He's in the Porsche Carrera Cup now. He's doing all sorts of stuff. He is on the rise. He's moving forward. and he's finding a way, even in the offseason, to keep his racing skills sharp and come out here in the PRL every week and fight for some wins this way. I don't know if he's going to be happy to take a win this way with Dalton Zavadil disconnecting due to internet issues, but he was very fast last week, and it might be sort of a little bit of extra glory compared to last week.
Oh, and the...
Oh no, has it come back to avenge Dalton Zavadil that instead Jimmy Yebra loses his teammate to internet issues now?
The unfortunate issue that befell Dalton Zavadil seemingly has befallen...
It's like a Greek tragedy. It was like fate.
Seemingly has befallen Fernando Yaquez as well. He could still blink his way back into reality, but at this point I would say it's pretty confident to say Simon Terrio has third position and the Seabow Racing team 5 minutes away from a race victory, but not a double podium. Yaquez will be heartbroken. It means that Littleton's now 8th, Beats is now 9th, Desjardins is now up in the 10th position. Not the only three-way fight to watch, by the way, because Jason Allen is on the back of David Mendoza, who's still trying to hunt down Martin Chris for 4th position, and I think we still have to worry, is there enough fuel to get the 55 to the end?
I think Fernando might need to check his cyber security settings, Arjuna, because I think the hackers finally got him.
You really had to hack that one into existence.
I did.
Yeah.
I finally had to force that one.
You tried.
That's going to be the way I finally get you to say Haquez instead of Yaquez, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
There we go.
Didn't even realize. Anyway, we've got two three-car battles at this point. Margin at the front, 3.5 seconds as it runs right now. Just look at these drivers working their way through. Martin Chris, who a little bit unsteady at the start of the race, but it's settled in nicely now. The one thing that he needs to add to his stream setup, we can go and take a look at it again on the zoom camera, by the way. No heart rate monitor. We'd love to know what's going on.
I mean, as a man of a more advanced age, that could get a little bit dark at a certain point, so maybe he doesn't want to show us his heart monitor, but I do love seeing Martin Crisp's face. I love seeing his perspective. I love seeing the chat. The only thing I think it's missing is it's missing a banana suit. Ted Lowendick started that tradition. I think everybody needs to get a little bit more bananery.
Go and follow along with Martin as well, of course.
Or maybe he should be a potato if he's crisp. We could do different vegetables and fruits for every person.
And follow with his second screen perspective. Watch the feet. That's what I want to watch as we head off in towards turn number 1, this time with 3 minutes left to go on the clock, and therefore 2 laps to go through the entirety of the field. Does he move? That's about as calm of a braking action as I can imagine. Don't forget that Martin Crisp is driving with a broken foot, so only one foot doing both the throttle and the brake, and you see the right foot going back and forth.
He must be pretty healed by now. The miracles of modern medicine. Those doctors did a good job.
Well, he's not left foot braking. That's, I think, what we're seeing.
His stream title is actually right foot breaker. Now that I look on my other screen, so he's definitely leaving the left foot off a little bit, but he's still doing some work.
Now, counterintuitively to some, right foot braking in GT cars not uncommon at the top level of motorsport, especially in 24-hour races where it means you're a little bit kinder on your equipment. It means you can save your brakes potentially. Important when you know you're going to be changing brakes at least once over the course of an endurance race. Also saves you some fuel because you have to spend less time mashing the throttle, some time transitioning between the two. And so keep that in mind. White flag will be out this time by, though, without a shadow of a doubt. David Mendoza, he's got one more lap to try and hold on in terms of fuel.
And he's had such a good run so far. P5 in this series would be such a strong result for him, but he does have to hope that he has enough fuel to make it to the end. You can see him lifting off a little bit earlier into the final corner. Jason Allen making up a little bit of time. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it. If he is short on fuel, there's so few places where you can actually save fuel at this track. He's going to have to hope that he put enough in, and maybe he calculated better than anybody else in the field.
Martin Chris, 7.6 seconds stationary, so a similar time, but came in a lot later, and you were talking about right foot braking, maybe saving him some fuel. Chris Beats also has only got one more lap to try and charge on to the back of Jeremy Littleton in the sole Ferrari in the field. Draft at play, but probably not going to be strong enough. White flag being waved, you can see by Barney for those working around. There's your race leader, though, down in the middle sector. And yes, it was slightly assisted by the fact that Dalton Zavadil's internet didn't want to play kind today. But Jimmy's taken full advantage of the opportunity to break away from Boris Ovando, opened up the gap in this phase of the race, Joey, after the pit stops by a further 2.5 seconds.
And he was there. He could have been in conversation for the win no matter what, just like he was last week at Suzuka. He was a second behind Vincent Trepanier at the line at Suzuka last week. He was only about half a second behind Dalton Zavadil before the internet issues befell him. So he's been pushing 2 weeks in a row. He has been on a hot streak. And
second behind Libra's number 74, and Simon Theriault making up for the lack of Vincent Trepanier by ensuring that Advanced Motorsports still represented on the podium. Martin Chris, David Mendoza, Jason Allen, 3 cars in close pursuit then behind for 4th, 5th, and 6th positions. And Jeremy Littleton's going to do just enough, it would seem, to hold off Chris Beats. It will be a drag race, though, to the line.
See if he can do it. Porsche versus Ferrari, battle of the straight line speed. I don't think Chris is going to have enough. He's going to try and use the side draft, but just not enough time. If the finish line was a little bit deeper down the track, he might have had a little bit better of a time there. But still an excellent drive from Chris Beats. Turned around to last place on lap 1, and he drove all the way back up into the top half of the field.
Not a bad, valiant effort, to say the very least there, and hopefully next couple of rounds can be a little bit trouble-free. Trouble-free, hopefully, for Miguel Fonseca, who I'm pretty sure had a drive-through penalty to serve for hitting the incident threshold, and so that's dropped him down to 12th position. And now we just watch as Sammy Hendricks, one of the 2 Audis in the field, runs to the line. And now just Miguel Fonseca to finish up as well. We'll grab a look at the results. We'll once again, hopefully go and chat to some of the drivers. And hopefully, Dalton Zavadil maybe still standing by so we can catch up very quickly with him. Sea of Porsches, though, through the field. Jimmy Lieber fastest of them all, 6.3 clear of the Precision Racing Esports driver Boris Ovando, Simon Theriault third, and Martin Chris, David Mendoza, and Jason Allen the rest of the top 6. 7th for Simpson, 8th for Littleton in front of Beats and Deschardin, as you get into those that struggle just a little bit more. Hendricks, Fonseca, final cars on the lead lap. Sosno 1 lap down in his BMW, and then Dalton Zavadil recovering to 2 laps down. It will be the second of the Seabao Racing cars, Fernando Yaquez, that sits down in 15th, Carlos Ocono 16th, Ethan Bass, and then Kwok Nin, 2 drivers not seeing the end down at the very bottom of the timing order. So that's a look at your race results. Still waiting to see if your winner is going to stand by and catch up with us down in the post-race paddock. In the meantime, as we wait to dial up your race winner, Joey Tevin standing by with Boris Ovando.
Indeed I am. We'll get second place Boris Ovando first. Boris, after yesterday didn't go quite so well, after a rogue cone took you out in that GTP, a second place must feel pretty good today.
I had nightmares. There was an evil cone in like the back of my head like all night long. That was not good yesterday. But and I was not gonna do the race today, but luckily I jumped on at the last second and did, and it went well.
Certainly did go well. How do you feel about Mugello? First time we've ever run here in the PRL. You're going to be running here next week in the GTP LMP2 series. How do you like it so far?
It's going to be fun in the GTP for sure. It's a nice track. Doesn't lend well to passing, but I think we had a great battle with Martin at the beginning. I mean, I was just on the edge of my seat there, just trying to hold it around the inside. And man, luckily he backed off at the end, because I don't think we would have been able to go too wide to that last right-hander there.
Well, Boris, congrats on P2. I'm happy it wasn't your internet that disconnected you today. It was some other people bearing the brunt of that, and we'll see you next week.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Boris Ovando coming home in P2, but we've got another joiner. Do you think we should talk to Fernando Jaquez after he probably should have finished on the podium today?
Sure, let's see if we can dial him up.
Why not? Might as well. Fernando Jaquez, welcome to the booth. Really should have.
Hello, guys. Oh my God, this is my hottest night ever.
Yeah, should have been a podium for you. Such a strong day. What happened, and what are the emotions?
No, this is so hard. Unfortunately, the PC went off at that time, so I didn't even know how to feel. It was the first time I could take the podium.
But your teammate Jimmy did end up winning the race, a big win for CRT. How good does that feel for the team to finally get that first win?
No, it's pretty amazing, my man. We were waiting for this like 3 seasons. It's pretty hard with these guys. Everybody is going so fast, but I'm pretty happy for him, and I hope before the end of the season I can get a podium too.
Certainly hope so. You got to tell Jimmy to come here to get an interview with us as well. But for now, congrats on the solid run. It's a podium in spirit, Fernando, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, my man. Have a great night.
Fernando Jaquez coming home in I don't even know where he finished at the end, Arjuna. 15th. We'll say it was 3rd though. It should have been 3rd.
It was a good race ultimately at Mugello, even with just the 18 cars. These drivers again will look forward to next week's trip to the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Same time, same place on RaceSpotTV, with the coverage beginning at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, with the Fix Series, of course, up first, and the Sprint Series rolling on after that. Quick look at the schedule if you're just joining us, so you can see where the drivers have been, where they've still got left to go as we run through the month of February and get ready, Joey, to crown our first champions of 2024.
I'm excited for all 3 of these tracks. Road Atlanta, always very fun. Okayama, underratedly fun, I would say, in a GT3 car. There's not many places for passing, but there is a very big opportunity into that hairpin on lap 1. So I think both the fixed and the sprint races are going to be pretty good there. And then we'll crown a pair of champions at Bathurst. You got to show up because you can't drop that last week. And that's going to be absolutely crazy. And we're going to definitely see some cars pinballing down the mountain. Hopefully it's not on lap 1, though.
And unfortunately, we won't see anyone taking the jump. That is a bygone now, with iRacing's updates to the gravel, to the grass, to make it just a little bit more realistic. But that was always more of an end-of-season sign-off more than anything serious. We still got the serious business to go before we get there. On behalf of the team behind the scenes, thank you so much for joining us here on RaceSpotTV for another round of the Precision Racing League Bonanza. We'll see you next time back over the pond at Road Atlanta. But for now, for Joey Tebman alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time in the PRL.